vote before Election Day than on the day itself. As you can see, people are still voting in much of the country. The lines have been long all through the day. The process has been mostly peaceful. And when all the ballots are counted, more than 150 million Americans will have voted, shattering all previous records. You all know the stakes are high. We do too. I'm here with our political team at ABC Election Headquarters. We have correspondents staked out across the country, at the White House with the president, in Delaware with Joe Biden, and at ABC's Ballot Watch station, where our legal team is focused on what's happening as the final votes are cast and the first ballots are counted. Now, that counting could take some time this year, and that is okay. Not knowing the outcome tonight does not mean the process is broken. It does not mean the election is unfair. What's most important is that every citizen who casts a valid vote gets that vote counted, however long it takes. We're committed to being with you every step of the way. We'll tell you what we know, what we don't know. Straightforward reporting, fact-based analysis on the most consequential election of our lives. The polls have just closed in 6 states. Here's what we know right now. We cannot project any states right now. In the state of Indiana, the vote just coming in. Vote coming in also in the state of Georgia. That has become a battleground in recent days. Donald Trump won it 4 years ago. It is a tight race right now. State of Virginia has been trending blue over the last 3 presidential elections. We do not have enough votes to project that right now. State of South Carolina, a red state, home of Lindsey Graham, close ally of President Trump in the Senate. Again, we cannot project that state yet, nor can we project the state of Kentucky, home of the Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, or the state of Vermont, strong Democratic state, of course, home to Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden beat him in the primaries. We cannot call it yet. We do have information coming in from exit polls of our voters. David Muir here with that.
And we should point out, George, tonight that as we make our way through the night, that these are exit polls, but we might want to call them voter polls this year because they're exits from today, people in line today to vote, but also early in-person voting and telephone polling with those who sent in mail-in ballots, absentee ballots. What we're going to be looking at over the course of the night are these starkly different closing arguments, right? From Donald Trump saying we're turning the corner on the virus to Joe Biden saying I can't flip a switch and get rid of it, but we have to control it before we can recover the economy and unite the country. And so these are the first indications of where the voters stand tonight. Let's first look at the overall job performance. This is not just handling of the pandemic, but overall job performance. 52% of those in the preliminary exit polls disapprove of President Trump's job performance, 47 approve. When it comes to this central debate that really defined both campaigns, whether we should contain COVID or open the country right now, look at that. 52% saying we should contain the pandemic first, 42% saying rebuild the economy. Now, when asked who would better contain COVID efforts, how are we doing so far? Before we get to that, how are we doing so far? 18% very well. 30% somewhat well, 16% somewhat badly, and that number there at the end, the highest of all 4, 35% saying we're containing COVID-19 very badly in this country. 2 more key questions, George, coming in already. First, who is better to handle the pandemic as we move forward? Joe Biden, 52%, Donald Trump's 43%. And this next question is also key as we make our way through this night, because President Trump had held the edge in polling just really until it started to tighten in recent days. Look at this on the economy tonight, and these are preliminary exit polls, but right now, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, even at 49.
Elections so often turn on that question. I was here with ABC News Live anchor Lindsay Davis. And Lindsay, we talk about the coronavirus. It surged in the final weeks of this campaign.
Yeah, essentially an October surprise. And what a time to see the surge just in the last week. Of course, we've broken records, having more than 550,000 cases across the country. And largely these upticks we're seeing in states that President Trump won in 2016. Talking, of course, about North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wisconsin. If we drill down on Wisconsin a bit, this is a state that he narrowly won in 2016. That might have a little bit to do with why he was there late in Kenosha last night and rallying the troops on the ground. But additionally, every single day they're averaging more than 4,700 cases in the state of Wisconsin. More and more, we're starting to really see these outbreaks taking place in rural areas that could have a major role on the battleground states. Primarily, we're talking about cases that are up, hospitalizations that are up in every single battleground state. Our analysis is showing that the redder a state is, meaning the more support they have for Trump, the higher the number of hospitalizations per capita in the last 2 weeks.
Lindsay Davis, thanks very much. Now I want to take a close look at the battlegrounds we're going to be looking at all night long. Tom Yamas is here with that. We've been focused on 6 key states right there where the campaigns have spent most of their time, most of their money, most of their energy.
George, good evening. These are the big 6 right here: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, North Carolina, and Florida. We're going to be watching these very closely throughout the night. In this column, you have 2016, the president's margin of victory. And you'll notice in the first 3 states, all less than a percentage point. That's the blue wall that collapsed for Democrats. And then in this column, this is the average of polling from our friends at 538. And there's a clear sign right there, George. You can see Joe Biden on top in every single one of those 6 states. Republicans will remind us the polls were wrong 4 years ago.
Let's bring in Nate Silver from 538. Nate, talk about the forecast you had coming into election night.
So coming in, we had Joe Biden with an 89% chance of winning, Trump with 1% chance of a tie. Obviously, no calls we've seen yet would change that very much. It's all things that are expected so far. But as states like Florida, we get results there, that could be quite decisive in how things go.
And remind everybody where you had it going into election night in 2016.
So in 2016, we had Trump with a 30% chance of winning, roughly 29%. That was a lot higher than a lot of people thought. But look, I don't control when the 30% happens, the 10% happens, so there is a possibility for Trump to win. He will have to hit his marks, though, win almost all of the battleground states, because Biden has more paths to 270.
Let's give people a sense of those paths right now. Let me go back to Tom Yamas. Let's start out with Joe Biden's clearest path to those key 270 electoral votes.
All right, George, this is how the map ended up 4 years ago. And on your question, we were talking about that blue wall that collapsed. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Let's give those to Joe Biden tonight. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Look at his total. If he can win those back, and a reminder, they were won by less than a percentage point 4 years ago, he becomes the next president at 278.
Which is why Donald Trump has spent so much time and energy on Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the math is very simple. If Donald Trump can hold all of his states and he wins back Pennsylvania, George, look at his number, 280. He gets reelected.
And then you have to go to those insurance policies for Joe Biden in the Sun Belt.
That's when the race changes, and that's what's different about this election, because the president is on defense in some of these southern states, including North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And just look at Joe Biden's totals. If he wins Wisconsin and Michigan and he can pick off North Carolina, 273. Let's give that back to President Trump. What about Georgia? The polls are tight there, 274. And of course, the biggest battleground, the Sunshine State, Florida. If Joe Biden wins that, he's at 287.
Nate Silver, let's dig down on that just a little more. Show what a difference it makes in your forecast if one of those big states flips.
Yeah, so we'll do Florida here. If you give Florida to Joe Biden, Biden goes, you see everything we calculate, Biden goes from 89% to 99%. You see states like Georgia become bluer. That would be potentially a Biden landslide, but Florida is a must-win state for Republicans.
And how about if Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania? What does that do to your forecast?
So I'm going to reset and then paint a much rosier picture for Trump. If you color Pennsylvania in red here, then Trump goes from pretty big underdog to actually a favorite here. That would be his path. He has to win Pennsylvania, win Florida, but that would make him about a 2-to-1 favorite.
Yeah, it goes back to the map he had last time, or much closer to the map he had last time. Nate, thanks very much. Let me bring in John Carl, our chief White House correspondent. We should prepare everybody for another possibility tonight. The shorthand has been called red mirages and blue mirages. And let's talk about the North first. Those states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, where the early vote is not going to come in right away.
Yeah, so here's the big thing. Republicans tend to vote in person on Election Day. Democrats vote more heavily by mail or early vote. So the in-person vote is going to favor the Republicans. And what happens in those states, and by the way, they're going to count pretty slowly. Pennsylvania, be prepared to be patient. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin are going to tend to count those in-person day of votes.
So we could see a big lead for Donald Trump.
You could see a very big lead. That's your so-called red mirage, a very big lead for Donald Trump that gets whittled away as they count the mail-in votes.
And then on the flip side, the early vote comes in fast in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina.
Exactly the reverse. And by the way, there's been a lot of early vote and a lot of mail-in vote in all of those states, also Texas and Arizona. And in all of those states, you're likely to see that early vote, that mail-in vote get counted first. And it comes in and it's going to change over the night. But you might see a very big lead, for instance, for Joe Biden early in Florida that goes away as they start
through the course of the night.
The day-in vote.
So we're going to be keeping an eye on that all night. Let's go to the campaigns right now. Mary Bruce with Joe Biden.
George, we have seen a bit of a shift here in tone from the Biden campaign. They have been very cautious all along. Tonight, they are exuding confidence. They say it is clear that they are winning, and that is because they feel that most of the early vote went to Joe Biden. They say that means when they pour over their data that Donald Trump is going to have to outperform tonight in many of the states that he won in 2016. In fact, they say that in several states, Trump will have to get 60% or more of the election day vote in order to pull this off. Now, Biden was asked a short while ago how he's feeling, what the outlook is. He says he never feels confident, but he says he does feel hopeful. He, of course, spent the day again in Pennsylvania. He has spent more time in that state than any other. He paid a visit today to his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania. They certainly would like to win Pennsylvania. It would make things a whole lot easier for them. But as we have been discussing, they have many other pathways here. It is not a must-win for them. One other thing here we're keeping a close eye on, and whether or not we may actually see Joe Biden here tonight. There was an expectation that he would be talking here at this drive-in rally here behind me tonight, no matter what. Now Joe Biden saying, we'll see, telling reporters just a short while ago, if there's something to talk about tonight, I'll talk about it. If not, he says he will wait for the votes to be counted and come out tomorrow.
Everyone has got to be patient. Cecilia Vega at the White House.
Confidence on this side, George, too. President Trump just moments ago tweeting that things are looking really good. He believes he will win more electoral college votes this year than he did 4 years ago, and he is banking this confidence on what he says is the turnout that he has seen at this blitz of swing state rallies that he's done all across the country. Publicly, aides say tonight is going to be a landslide. That's the public story, George. Privately, when you talk to aides, people on the campaign, they can see they've got a very large uphill battle to climb tonight, and it is all going to depend on Election Day turnout. Voters who showed up to the polls today. The aides are increasingly concerned about what they are seeing in Pennsylvania, a state that they know they need to win. Behind the scenes, we're hearing from sources that President Trump in recent days has really been ramping up these conspiracy theories about fraud, about an election being stolen from him. His lawyers, we know they're preparing for a potential legal fight if this race ends up being a really close one. Here's what's going to happen tonight. We know that the White House has invited some hundreds of people to show up for this an event indoors here at the White House. The White House has the campaign has 2 war rooms set up inside the White House as well. But as far as that event goes, George, we're talking about people wearing masks, people social distance, people taking tests. But nonetheless, we saw what happened at a recent event not too long ago. It became a super spreader event here. So we will see what happens with this event tonight. As for President Trump, he said he will not declare victory until there is a victory to declare.
Cecilia Vega, thanks very much. The vote's starting to come in from President Trump's now home state of Florida. Most of the polls close there at 7 o'clock. They don't all close until 8 o'clock. But there you see, with about 20% of the expected vote in, Donald Trump leading Joe Biden 51-48. I want to go to our Ballot Watch headquarters right now. Pierre Thomas, our senior justice correspondent, is there. We know that the Homeland Security, FBI, were on alert in the days preceding the election and all day long for any possible intimidation at the polls, any possible violence.
George, and we actually saw some intimidation in play today. The FBI is investigating the fact that robocalls went out to voters in about 6 states, to include Ohio and Michigan. In those calls, they told voters, stay at home and be safe, basically telling them not to go to the polls. So the FBI is investigating, and we know that's what they're concerned about tonight and in the days coming. If there's not a quick result known, if we don't know who the president is for a couple of days, they expect and anticipate that we will see foreign nations and others try to stoke disinformation and chaos and undermine the democracy.
But to be clear, the process pretty orderly today, Pierre.
The process was orderly, and a lot of law enforcement officials I spoke to today were very thankful they did not see any sort of violence. It seems like people were able to vote easily and without any problems. Again, that is the concern going forward, just disinformation about whatever the results will be.
Let's bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. Dan Abrams, just walk through with people what would constitute illegal voter intimidation at the polls.
Well, look, under federal law, that would involve coercion, threats, harassment, and that can mean a wide range of things. It can range from anything like having a weapon and literally threatening someone to much more subtle things like a poll watcher who's not really supposed to interact with voters asking questions about their eligibility, stating false things about voting, et cetera. Those are all considered to be levels of voter intimidation. But I do think it is important to point out that this has been a pretty calm day. I mean, we were all talking about all of these, these apocalyptic potential that could occur today that didn't occur. And I think we should be able to take at least a deep breath to be able to say, okay, that's good. Now let's go into phase 2 here to see how the counting goes, what the results are, et cetera. There has not been massive systemic voter intimidation. I'm sure we're going to continue to hear more isolated examples, as we do in every election, of issues that come up at the polls.
Kate Shaw, biggest issue with counting the ballots going forward?
Well, there's a big question about what ballots will be counted at all. We're not going to know, how a lot of absentee voters voted tonight because states like Pennsylvania don't even allow those ballots to be opened and counted until beginning on Election Day. And when you have millions of ballots, of course, this is an election that is being conducted in the midst of a pandemic involving a highly contagious virus. And election officials have made all kinds of changes in order to facilitate voting in a safe way, including expanding access to absentee voting. So we just have millions more absentee ballots this cycle than we typically do. And there will be questions about, whether signatures match, whether ballots that arrive after Election Day in states like Pennsylvania. Right now, those are legitimate, valid ballots under Pennsylvania law. But we could see the Trump campaign, if it all comes down to Pennsylvania, go back to the Supreme Court to reopen that question.
Polls are still open in most of the country. Kate, thank you. When we come back, we're going to hear from the Biden campaign.
Stand down.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Oh, look at this clear sky.
Hey, clear sky, guys. Made it through.
Change is difficult, but this is my home. This is where I want to be.
I love that town. I'm not going to bail on it.
It's a big deal. New beginning.
Rebuilding Paradise. Network premieres Sunday at 9 on National Geographic.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff.
Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
Welcome back to our coverage. Coming up at 7:30 right now. I want to go to Wilmington, Delaware now, where the deputy campaign manager for Joe Biden, Kate Bedingfield, is on site. Kate, thank you for joining us tonight. Very simply, how are you feeling right now?
We feel really good, George. We think we have a lot of different pathways to the nomination. We've been to the White House. We've been really encouraged by the enormous turnout that we've seen across early vote. We've seen record levels of turnout. We believe that we've really banked a lot of votes in these key states, and that it's going to be very difficult for Donald Trump to make up that difference tonight. We think people have really responded to Joe Biden's message. You know, he spent this entire campaign talking about the need to bring the country together, to heal, to find a way to get this virus under control, to get the economy back together. He's really, he's really had a proactive, positive message that people have responded to. And what we're seeing across the country tonight is that people are turning out to vote for Joe Biden.
For all your supporters out there, what's the one place you want them to focus on, saying this is the key, this is going to show that we're winning tonight?
Well, fortunately, the situation for us is such that we don't have to do that. We have a lot of different ways to get to the nomination. We have a potential path that runs through the Sun Belt. We have a potential path that runs through the upper Midwest, through Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina. These are all places where we look really competitive and where people are turning out to vote for Joe Biden. So we're in a great position, George, where we don't have to say, here's the one state that we think is going to be the decision maker for us. And that's, I think, a testament to how people are reacting to Joe Biden and how they want to see him in the White House.
And should we expect to hear from Vice President Biden tonight?
I would expect you'll hear from him. I think throughout this campaign, he has filled a void of presidential leadership that we haven't gotten from Donald Trump. And I think tonight you should expect to hear him speak to the nation and talk about the path forward and the hard work that we're going to do to start healing this country.
Kate Bedingfield, thanks very much.
Thanks, Ray.
We now have about 40% of the vote in from the state of Florida. Florida, it looks like Florida again, Tom.
Yeah, it does. We have some great information and an early headline, even though we're still in the 7 o'clock hour. So let's dive right in. The big headline out of Florida right now is Miami-Dade County. This is the biggest county in all of Florida. Hillary Clinton came out of Miami-Dade County 4 years ago with a 300,000 vote advantage over Donald Trump. Tonight, Donald Trump is only 100,000 votes below Joe Biden. This is not a good number for the former vice president right now, with 84% of the vote in Miami-Dade County. But there is some good news for Joe Biden right now. This is the I-4 corridor, Pinellas. This is a county that has older voters, a lot of white voters. President Trump won here, but barely 4 years ago. And tonight, Joe Biden is on top. He's actually overperforming from Hillary Clinton. And in right here, Hillsborough, this is the Tampa Bay area. Joe Biden on top also, and he's doing better than Hillary Clinton. That kind of news is good for Joe Biden. But the headline right now is Miami-Dade County. Republicans able to really make a dent in that Democratic wave down there, George.
Rahm Emanuel, when you see that, what does it tell you?
Well, it tells me that your word patience is something that I'm not very good at, that I'm going to have it. No, look, there's some places that are overperforming, some places are underperforming. And it does have one question that I don't know here is what's happening in the African-American community of Miami-Dade. That is the one part, I mean, in granular, you would get precincts. But everywhere else, Biden's hitting his numbers and exceeding his numbers. That would tell you Miami-Dade, where they were having some problems there for early vote, and it came out also on Election Day.
Christie, Florida must win for President Trump.
It's a must win for the president, but if you think about it, Biden is now, with 84% of the vote in at Miami-Dade, he's nearly 10 points behind where Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago. And that's a big amount of vote there, too. So, I think this is very good for the president's prospects in Florida.
Yvette Simpson, what's the biggest thing you're watching tonight?
I think, I'm looking at, particularly in Florida, Broward County is something that I was just talking to Rahm about during the break, if we could take a look at it. Broward County is seeing turnout above 2008. This is where you can start to make up the difference in places like Miami-Dade. We know the I-4 corridor is also important. A lot of organizations like ours did a lot of work there. I think Florida is going to be a long game. We're also seeing some really great stuff in Georgia. Joe Biden is outperforming Hillary Clinton significantly so far in Cobb County, which is suburban Atlanta. So when we give up on Florida, which we won't, let's look at Georgia. I think Georgia is the sneaker for tonight.
What this tells me in Miami-Dade County is that the president is doing well with Cuban Americans. His approach to Cuba, to Venezuela, he has a strong approach with those nation states, and the people who have come from there and live in Florida now have responded well to it. We see that. The other thing I would point out, though, is, we don't yet know where these votes are coming from. We assume that they're the early votes and the absentee votes. And so you would expect the president's lead to either tighten or get bigger in many of these counties as Election Day votes get counted. We don't know that.
Let's go to Victor Akendo in St. Petersburg.
George, that's the Cuban vote, of course, is so huge here in Florida. And in Miami-Dade County, that, of course, is the biggest voting group there. I can tell you that the political ads have been nonstop and they have been relentless. President Trump labeling Joe Biden as a socialist, that has resonated with the Cubans in Miami-Dade County. Just the other day, President Trump tweeted that Joe Biden is a proven Castro puppet. I think that's 100% what's going on in Miami-Dade County right now, George.
Victor Akendo, thanks very much. We're going to be keeping an eye on Florida all through the night. We're going to take a break right now. The polls are about to close in Ohio, North Carolina, and West Virginia. We'll be right back with that.
When we come back, polls close in the key battleground states of North Carolina and Ohio. As millions of Americans cast their votes, we're live across the country on ABC.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. Please stop.
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished.
Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Josh, did you kill your wife? And I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of a killer.
Now, new details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC.
Live from ABC News election headquarters in New York City, here again, George Stephanopoulos.
We are back at 7:30 in the East. The polls have closed in 3 more states. Let's take a look. We can't project any of them right now, but the polls have closed in the state of Ohio with its 18 electoral votes. Republican stronghold. President Trump won by 8 points last time around. We cannot project it yet. State of North Carolina, Democrats have fought hard here, but it went to President Trump last time around. Well, too early to call right now. Key Senate race there as well. And the state of West Virginia, we can't call it yet. 5 electoral votes expected to go to President Trump tonight. Solid state for him, but we cannot project it yet. We do want to go to Byron Pitts, who's in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Byron, they have extended the polls, keeping the polls open in several parts of North Carolina tonight.
That's right, George, because there were some technical problems in a handful of precincts. Like, for instance, at one church, the copy machine broke down, so things were delayed. The expectation is that they will begin to release numbers in North Carolina about 8:15, and we expect a large amount of numbers to come out because, George, 4.5 million North Carolinians here voted early. That's 96% of the total vote here from 2016. The expectation is it'll be about a third Democrat, a third Republican, and a third independent. Historically in North Carolina, Democrats do what they do, Republicans do what they do. The uncertain area tonight will be what will independents do. This area, demographic is a big issue in North Carolina, George, because of the changing demographics in North Carolina. For instance, Raleigh, where I am tonight, is the second fastest growing city in America, only behind Austin, Texas. Every year, about 110,000 new citizens move to North Carolina. And that, in part, is why the state is in play. Historically, a red state. Now it's trending purple. So tonight, this is a state that Donald Trump won 4 years ago by about 175,000 votes. This year, the Biden campaign believes they can play in North Carolina. And, George, as you mentioned earlier, there's an important Senate race in North Carolina that could decide which party controls the U.S. Senate.
We will be keeping an eye on that tonight as well. Let's take a look at the vote coming in from the state of Georgia right now. There we see with about 4% of the expected vote in. Still quite early right there. Joe Biden has a slim lead over Donald Trump, but only 4% of the expected vote in right now. But we want to go to TJ Holmes in Atlanta. TJ.
Hey there, George. The story of the day kind of was, where is everybody? We're expecting, and what we've seen here in Georgia historically, and even in recent history with the primary this summer, long lines, polling issues, machines going down, not enough polling workers, and there was some anxiety here, wondering what this day would look like, if they would be able to handle what was expected to be a huge influx, another record of people showing up. Well, it turns out they may have already shown up in the early voting. 3.9 million people voted early. The total from 2016 was 4.1 million. So many people have already voted that, get this, today the average wait time around the state of Georgia for voting was about 3 minutes. So today it has been a remarkably smooth day. We have seen sporadic issues here and there. They have had some polling places they are going to allow to stay open a little later, but by 15, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, because a poll worker didn't show up on time or because a transformer blew in another place. But small little glitches, if you will, but overwhelmingly this has been a smooth day. And the question is, who shows up today? We're expecting, a lot of people said Trump was going to need a huge day, his people to show up today late. The Secretary of State is expecting, though, still 1.5 million to 2 million people were going to show up today still. That would still set some kind of a record, but we just didn't see the issues, the problems today. So a smooth day. And as Byron just talked about in North Carolina, here as well, we have 2 Senate seats that are very important as well that could both end up in runoffs that Democrats are very competitive in. So this is a very important state, and it's been a long, long time since we've been able to say that Georgia is a battleground state, has been won handily even the past several election cycles by the Republicans. Trump won it by 5 percentage points. That's a comfortable lead. But even after that, Republicans were getting 53, 55% of the vote here in the past several election cycles. So just remarkable, George, that we're even seeing and talking about Georgia being a battleground state.
Last time a Democrat won, Bill Clinton in 1992. Thank you, TJ. Let's go to Stacey Abrams in Georgia right now. Ran for governor in 2018. Stacey, you came up 55,000 votes short, I think, in 2018. Are Democrats going to do it this time?
We're very hopeful. We are positioned well. We had incredibly strong early voting, absentee ballot chasing. And unfortunately, we know that the President of the United States discouraged absentee balloting. I would say that this is always going to be a close race. Georgia is a very tight state. My election, it was 1.4% difference, continuing our trajectory of moving blue. And because we were able to address so many of the issues of voter suppression, because through Fair Fight we were able to help expand the number of voting locations, make certain that we had support for the county officials, and because we saw incredible numbers of people who took advantage of our early voting and had a number of places to drop off their absentee ballots, I think it's going to be tight, but I would prefer to be a Democrat than a Republican right now.
What's happening on the ground today? Are Democrats coming out today?
Yes, I mean, look, there was a steady number of people voting. It was not the crush of voters that everyone anticipated. That's why I'm more bullish on our side. But again, this is Georgia. We know that things become very, very close very, very quickly. And so I'm not going to prognosticate who's going to win. But I will say that we have been pleased by turnout, both early turnout and by absentee ballot performance, as well as turnout today.
Stacey Abrams, thanks very much. Let's take another look at Florida right now. 66% of the expected vote is in right now, and now it's flipped a little bit again, but it's oh so close right there, 50-49, Biden and Trump. Tom, you got anything?
Yeah, we got some news. There's good news, bad news for Florida right now for Joe Biden, and we'll show you why. I want to start with some of the good news for Joe Biden at this hour. You can see through the I-4 corridor, we're going to split up Florida into three parts right here. You have South Florida, where Democrats usually do well. You have the Panhandle, where there's still a lot of vote left to be counted there. That's Trump country. And in the middle is the swing area. And right now, Joe Biden is doing pretty well. In a county like Pinellas, which I said earlier, older voters, white voters, this usually mirrors how the state does. Joe Biden's doing really well there. He's 3 points ahead of Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump underperforming in that area right there. Hillsborough right next door in Tampa, same story. Joe Biden's doing a little bit better. But I also want to show you some other parts where they're making grounds. Jacksonville, Duval, this is usually Republican territory, and Joe Biden tonight is on top. Earlier, Ron was asking about African-American voters. There's about 30 to 40% African-Americans in Jacksonville. This is also an area Democrats targeted for the suburbs. Another one of those areas was Sarasota County, a lot of retirees, but also growing suburbs as well. You can see Joe Biden may be down, but he's growing on Hillary Clinton's number. But the headline, George, we got to keep coming back to this. He's underperforming in the biggest county. This is where Democrats have to win big. And right now, Donald Trump, even though he's down, is looking good.
David Muir, what are we seeing from the exit polls in Florida?
Well, it's really interesting. You know, Tom mentions this. We were always going to be looking in Florida at senior citizens in Florida, whether or not he could peel off some of President Trump's support and some of the more rural areas of Florida. But right now, when you take a look at Donald Trump's job performance, and this is often an indicator, although these are preliminary exit polls, as we always like to say this early in the night, 54% approve of the job that President Trump is doing. Now, here's the interesting thing. On COVID, when you talk about the pandemic, 48% say Joe Biden would handle the pandemic moving forward better than Donald Trump, but as you can see, very tight. On the question of the economy, 53% say the president they trust to handle the economy, to 44% with Joe Biden. But many of these numbers, just show how close it is.
And it's just flipped again now, 50-48 Trump for Biden. John Carr, are you looking at a key county?
Yes, Sumter County, which is the villages. The villages, yeah. where they all go. We saw it, and it's Trump country through and through. And if Tom, you have the villages, it's looking very close. I mean, it's looking very similar to what it was 4 years ago, which is good for Donald Trump. Biden is overperforming where Hillary Clinton was a little bit there, but Donald Trump is also doing better.
Do we know what the turnout is like there in Sumter? Is it above? Oh, there it is right there. It's heading to 90,000.
Yeah, it's above. If you look right now, Trump has 6,000 more votes than he had, raw votes, than he had 4 years ago. But Biden has about 6,000 more raw votes than Hillary Clinton had 4 years ago.
And the state is oh so close right now. Cecilia Vega, Latinos are going to be key in the state of Florida.
Yeah, key. And George, the President Trump made more trips to Florida than any other state leading up to the election. They're going to be key in Florida, of course. They always are. But this election could be the Latino election, the first time that we've seen. We've been talking about it for years, but we are seeing Latinos vote at higher rates in early voting than we have ever. 32 million eligible Latinos up for voting this year in this presidential cycle, the largest ethnic minority in this country, expected to exceed African Americans even voting. Both campaigns campaigns have pushed hard to win this vote, and President Trump has been pushing this narrative that Joe Biden will be a socialist, that Latinos, particularly Florida Latinos, Miami, Cuban American Latinos, do not want to see. But I got to say, George, we talk about this every 4 years, particularly. Latinos are not a monolith. Latinos who vote in Florida tend to vote very differently than, say, Mexican Americans that we see in places like Texas and Arizona. So we will be watching those other states, and the campaign's not just focused on places like Florida or Texas this time. They're focused on the suburbs in places like Pennsylvania, in a state where President Trump won by less than 1% in 2016, because they very much view this ethnic group as potentially the group that could flip a very tight race for either candidate.
Thank you, Cecilia. Lindsay Davis, what are you seeing in Florida?
Well, I'm particularly interested in, and this is something that may play out in Arizona as well, but these areas that have these high retirement areas, right? Older people. No other group has been more impacted by coronavirus than senior citizens, those who are 65 and older in particular. 82% of the deaths in Florida have been senior citizens, and yet these are people who come out to vote during the midterms. 1/3 of those who showed up to vote were senior citizens, and this is also far-reaching. I mean, this is not just people who are seeing firsthand their friends dying, but they're experiencing the isolation. And so across the country, you have an 80% death toll with the elderly population. In Florida, in 2016, while President Trump won by 113,000 votes, with senior citizens, he beat Hillary Clinton by 330,000 votes with the seniors. And so this is looming large, and we're seeing a major shift as far as the support from seniors going to Biden.
Thank you, Lindsay. Ram, you're seeing something in Florida?
Well, I think what's very, very important is if you take the last 5 presidentials, it's 50 million votes have been cast for the presidency, and 19,000 separate the Democrat and the Republican. When you attack all 50 million over the last 5 presidentials, it's Democrat and Republican separate by 19,000. There's going to be a night where if you don't have a tough stomach, don't watch Florida. Watch the rest of the country, because you're not going to be. I'm getting texts from my daughter. She says, I can't handle it. I said, go back to your studies for a second, because this is going to go. Look, if you can look up at the Panhandle, hasn't reported. You got a 200,000 vote reporting. This is going to go back and forth.
But the Panhandle is likely to be very strong for the president.
But it's a light vote. It's not a big vote. It's going to be strong for him.
This is why Georgia continues in Florida, from my perspective. Unless those Miami-Dade numbers change for Joe Biden, I think he's going to have a tough time winning it. It'll be close, but he'll have a tough time winning it if he's underperforming Hillary by 9.5 points from 4 years ago when she lost to Donald Trump.
We want to go to the White House now. Kellyanne Conway, the president's counselor, is there. Kellyanne, how are you feeling?
We're feeling good. We know that the first day of early voting really benefited the Democrats in places like North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Michigan, George. They had a significant advantage. You know, if you're an anti-Trump voter, you've waited 4 years to vote against him. So people came early, but they can't come often. You can complain about him hundreds of times, post things thousands of times, but you can only vote against the president one time. And that's why we know the day of voters, just like in 2016, are very strong today in 2020. In some of those counties like Dawson, Pennsylvania, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, we're feeling really good about some of the early returns in places like that. So if we can protect the 2016 map and even sacrifice a state here or there, we don't want to, we still feel like we can get over 270 tonight. The president, he's feeling great, George, because in the end, he ran the campaign these last 7 to 10 days that he knows how to run. He takes the case directly to the people, 15 rallies or so in 3 days. He wants to make sure he gets regional and local coverage as well as national coverage. And voters appreciate candidates who earn their vote. They feel like you literally show up and put up. And nobody does that quite like President Trump. So he very much appreciated the fact that he can get out there into all the nooks and crannies of these different swing states and bring the case directly to the people as the outsider incumbent.
And will we hear from him tonight?
Will he what? I'm sorry?
Will we hear from him tonight?
Yes, you will hear from the president tonight. I'm headed over to the White House shortly. Be joined by, I think, a couple hundred people, and the president is expected to address the nation later from the East Room of the White House. And we know that you heard from President-elect Trump at about 3 a.m. Chris Christie and I were there, 3 a.m., after Huma Abedin called my cell phone at 2:30 a.m. Things went really late into the night, and that's before we had this explosion of early voting and mail-in ballots. In a year of 2020, the year of uncertainty, George, why shouldn't the presidential election be wrapped with uncertainty as well, with just a few hours to go? So we're not in a rush. We're patient people. I certainly am. But I know the president, I watched him watch returns now in 2016 and 2018. And he really gets very quiet. He watches. He's working the phones. People are running in from the war room, giving him data, giving him their best guesses, but not their wishful thinking, and I appreciate that. The president was the last one. Governor Christie will remember, he was really the last one to think he was going to win in 2016 that night, even though the returns were coming in state by state. So we're pretty confident in the competence of the ground game. We've never had nobody's ever had 2.5 million volunteers, for example. President Obama came close to 2.2 million in 2012. But the enthusiasm, the energy, and the engagement in these last 7 to 10 days belongs to President Trump. I think the polls and the political professionals definitely belong to Joe Biden. Lots of issues motivating voters this year: first-time voters, independent voters, suburban voters, senior voters. I've been watching them for quite a while during my career. And I would remind everybody something I haven't heard much of, which is in 2012, when President Obama got successfully reelected, he didn't do as well. He was down 6 points among 18 to 29-year-olds. He did less well among women. He did less well overall against Mitt Romney than he had John McCain 4 years earlier. So a president can lose some ground in some of these key groups and still be reelected. We're not talking about electability, who can win or who can't win. We're talking about electoral college. And busting through that blue wall like we did in 2016 is really the key to tonight.
Yep. Kellyanne Conway, thanks very much. Let me bring in Matt Dowd and Heidi Heitkamp, now two more of our analysts. Matt Dowd, you were with George W. Bush in Florida back in 2000. I think it went on for something like 35 days. Looks like a close race in Florida tonight. What stands out to you overall as we head into the vote counting tonight?
Well, if you take a look at Florida, and I know we haven't talked about it much because they're likely red states, which is Indiana and Kentucky in this. What's fascinating is Joe Biden is on average 4 or 5 or 6 points ahead of where Hillary Clinton was in all of the suburban areas and the surrounding areas. You look at Indiana, look at Kentucky, even look in Florida, Pinellas County and all those places. All of that sort of what we expected going into the state, that Joe Biden would have a surge in that area, just like what happened in 2018. So that's going to be very interested to see in Philadelphia, the suburbs in Philly, and the suburbs in Pittsburgh, the suburbs in Detroit, the suburbs in Wisconsin around Milwaukee. But I think a big thing to come away with was why I think Florida is going to be very, very close is by that Miami-Dade number. Joe Biden can still win Florida with that Miami-Dade number. But instead of it being a comfortable or even something that you could bank on, it's going to be a very, very, very close race in Florida now.
Okay, Matt Dowd, thanks. Heidi Heitkamp, former Democratic senator from North Dakota. We're seeing COVID rage in your state, across the upper Midwest, as Joe Biden and Donald Trump battling it out in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
Yeah, you cannot understate the impact of what's happening with COVID here and how that has changed the dynamic, especially in rural areas when we know that there is a shortage of access to health care. But I want to say something about the early vote. I think at the end of the day, the regret that Donald Trump may have is that he kept telling people not to vote early. You should always get those votes in the bank, and if you just count on one day, you may be disappointed in that one day. And so I think we're going to see some wins in the South. I think we're going to see the blue line hold. I think that Iowa may be in play, and we may win a Senate seat in Montana. We will keep an eye, especially if that 4% holds.
We will keep an eye on it all. Heidi Heitkamp, thanks very much. We do have another state to call. Not a big surprise here, Vermont. Joe Biden will win the state of Vermont, and it's 3 electoral votes. Only 5% of the expected vote ins, but we can project that Joe Biden will win there handily. Got to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
This is what being live is all about. I can see pushing through. This is ABC News Live.
Neighborhoods are underwater.
24/7 streaming news source from ABC News.
Here goes.
From Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live video. That's a grenade. Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want, free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments, all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
Go
We're
there
trying to
now.
put this fire out right
With
now.
ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush.
Just look at all of the smoke here.
Real, raw,
Welcome
live.
to the Columbus Zoo.
No matter where the next step takes us, we're taking it.
It's frightening.
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here at ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it, live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And imagine this, it's free. Wow. Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime, streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
Wednesday night, get ready for a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
all new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
State of Kentucky. Kentucky will go to Donald Trump. It is the home of the Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell. Donald Trump won it last time around by about 30 points. Only about a third of the vote is in right now, but we can project that Donald Trump will win Kentucky again. Getting more vote in from the state of Georgia right now, about 77% of the expected vote in. A long way to go there in Georgia. Donald Trump leading Joe Biden right now. In the state of Virginia, has been trending blue for some time. Right now, this could be, this is interesting. Donald Trump still ahead with about 13% of the expected vote in. The polls were not close in Virginia. Looking forward, we'll have to watch where the vote is coming in from the state of Virginia right now. As we've said, the president has already won the state with 60% of the vote in Indiana. Right there, we cannot project that yet, but the president is well ahead right there. And in Florida, we are, of course, watching the vote there in Florida with 80% of the expected vote in right there. Joe Biden and Donald Trump are battling it out. I want to go to Martha Raddatz, our chief global affairs anchor, my This Week co-anchor as well. And Martha, you've been traveling the country through this election season.
About 6,000 miles since September, George, crossing the country and all the way back. And I think we really have to talk about the voters. It's so extraordinary how many people have voted in this election, how passionate they are about this election. And I can tell you many of those same people who I talked to over the last couple of months, I've talked to today. They are anxious. They are tense. One of the stories was in Kansas. I call it the tale of two farmers. Bob Hazelwood voted 2 weeks ago. In 2016, he voted for an independent. When I talked to him in September, he was leaning towards Donald Trump, but he decided he did not like his character. He did not like the chaos. He voted for a Democrat for the very first time ever, voting for Joe Biden. But his nephew told me this evening he was also leaning Donald Trump, and he voted for Donald Trump. He said he could not vote for Joe Biden. He said he didn't feel that Joe Biden supports farmers. But all all over the country, everywhere I went, in the most rural areas, you would see massive signs. To Pennsylvania, where you would see every sign of Biden on one block, Trump on the next block. And many voters there who we talked to just a week or so ago also said they were switching, that they voted for Donald Trump but are now voting for Joe Biden, and most of those were suburban women.
And what you hear about that time and time again, Martha, is it's the tweets, it's the character.
It's exactly that. And I think really that comes down to character versus policy, and people are really trying to decide what they believe in. Like Bob Hazelwood in Kansas said he didn't like Donald Trump's character, but he loves his policy. So it's sort of personal versus policy. And Bob Hazelwood said he looked at the rest of the country and what a vote for Joe Biden would mean for the rest of the country as opposed to Donald Trump.
Martha Raddatz, thanks. What about Eva Pilgrim in Pennsylvania? Eva Pilgrim has traveled across the state of Pennsylvania as well. You cut your teeth. WPVI in Philadelphia. You've been across the state, and you've seen the same thing Martha has talked about. Neighborhoods where you have Biden signs on one side of the block, Trump signs on the other.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of mixed political support across the state of Pennsylvania. The thing we hear everyone talking about on both sides of the political spectrum is the concern over these ballots. A lot of people were thinking about potentially sending in a mail-in ballot, but then they got concerned because of all the confusion and speculation around the mail-in. So they decided that they would show up in person today to make sure that their vote counted. Making sure their vote counted was incredibly important to almost everyone we spoke to, George.
And Eva, you sent me a note earlier that it was fascinating to me. You said we've heard so much about these shy Trump voters, people who won't tell pollsters they're going to vote for Donald Trump. You seem to come across what you would consider shy Biden voters in Pennsylvania.
That's exactly right, George. I was actually really surprised to discover this after talking to some neighbors. They would see the Trump signs and they were concerned because they saw Biden signs that had been destroyed or windows that were broken. So they didn't want their neighbors to know that they were going to be voting for Joe Biden. George?
Eva Pilgrim, thanks very much. Coming up on 8 p.m. now, and these polls are going to close in 16 states at 8 p.m. We'll be here with all the results we have when we come back.
Moments from now, we're live in the battleground states as results come in. Polls are already closed in 9 states. They're about to close in the key states of Florida and Pennsylvania when Election Night 2020 continues on ABC.
ABC News, straightforward.
Read the crest. Stand down.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff.
Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know seems to change, well, like every day. So what is it that you really need to know, want to know, to help you not just get through your day, but make the most of it? Feel smarter, feel better, feel happier. Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon? GMA 3, what you need to know. It's all about you. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. This is going to be so good. Wednesday night, get ready for
A con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
all new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Cross my office off the list. What if we pick for each other?
Please stop.
Yes!
This is an ABC News special. There has never been an election quite like this, with so much on the line.
We are going to keep on working, we are going to keep on fighting, and we are going to keep on winning, winning, winning.
We choose hope over fear. We choose unity over division, science over fiction, and yes, we choose truth over lies. So it's time to stand up, take back our democracy.
Live from New York City and across the country, Election Night 2020. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
8 p.m. and these polls have just closed in 16 more states, and we have more results. In the state of New Jersey, Joe Biden will win the state of New Jersey. Chris Christie, I guess that's not a surprise.
Yeah, I'm going to fall off my chair. I can't believe it. Are you going to tell me Cory Booker won next? I'm really going to pass.
We will check that. Another projection also, state of Massachusetts. Joe Biden will win the state of Massachusetts right there, and it's 11 electoral votes. Joe Biden will win the state of Maryland, and it's 10 electoral votes. A pickup for Donald Trump in the state of Oklahoma. Of course, he won that last time around. 7 electoral votes at play, and Donald Trump will win those. Joe Biden will win his home state of Delaware, and it's 3 electoral votes. Joe Biden will win the District of Columbia, and it's 3 electoral votes. But let's take a look down in the map now and see what we show. Oklahoma and Kentucky for President Trump, Vermont, and those states up in the Northeast, Massachusetts, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey for Joe Biden right now. Still early in the night, 6 states to 2, 44 electoral votes to 15. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Ohio in the middle of the country. 28% of the expected vote is in, and right now, at least, Tom Yamas, Joe Biden has a lead.
Yeah, and actually, there's some good news for Joe Biden out of Ohio. The Biden campaign didn't really contest Ohio, and they made some last-minute trips there, and here's why they have reasons to be happy. In counties like Wood that went for Barack Obama, then switched over to President Trump, you can see Joe Biden is on top, 55% of the vote in, but you can see he's overperforming from Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. Another one of those counties that President Trump was able to swing, Trumbull County, you can see Joe Biden again on top. He's up almost 10 points there as well. But, you know, Ohio's all about the 3 C's, and George, I know you know this. Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. We don't have information for Cincinnati yet, but in Columbus and in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Joe Biden is doing really well. They're 74%. He's up almost 10 points from where Hillary Clinton was. These are the areas where Democrats have to really run up the vote. Lake County, which is always a nail-biter, 51 to 47 there. His numbers are really good compared to Hillary Clinton 4 years ago.
Okay, Tom, thanks. What are we seeing in the exit polls there, David?
Yeah, it's really different. Tom points out some encouraging numbers, but the exit polls reflect something slightly different in Ohio. If you take a look at the president's job performance in Ohio, 54% approve, 44% disapprove. This is the strongest number we're seeing in that sort of upper Midwest of the country. And when you break it down to those 2 central issues, containing COVID, rebuilding the economy, 48% say the pandemic is more important to try to contain. But here's where it gets interesting, George. I was digging a little deeper here. The vast majority of Ohio voters prefer Trump over Biden to handle handle the pandemic moving forward, 51 to 46%. And that's even with the governor, Mike DeWine, who's received such high marks for his handling of the pandemic in recent days, saying it's raging throughout the state. But still, Ohio voters, despite what they're seeing with COVID, believe President Trump is the best to handle this moving
Yvette
forward.
Simpson, your home state, what do you make of the early results?
You know, it's looking good. Even in places like Delaware County and Mahoning County, we're seeing Joe Biden outperform Hillary Clinton by 10, 20%, which is really great. And as you know, Ohio has got a lot to prove. We make presidents. We made Barack Obama both times. And so I think Ohio has a chip on his shoulder, and we're ready to flip back to blue in this one. A lot of hard work going on in Ohio, and hopefully we can deliver
Sarah
for Joe
Fagan,
Biden today.
We saw Joe Biden make a late play in Ohio, a late play in your home state of Iowa.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in Iowa, though, I'm not pessimistic yet. I think the first votes often come in are the absentees. We've seen Democrats do very well across the country with absentees. So I expect that Ohio will close strong for the president. In Iowa, there seems to be a lot of momentum for Republicans. And what we see across the board here is that places you expect Republicans to win appear to be closing for Republicans. Really, North Carolina, Georgia, that's what this is going to come down to tonight.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's go to Adrian Bankert in Columbus. Adrian, as David Muir said, COVID has been raging through the state of Ohio for the last several weeks.
Yes, that's right, George. In fact, new numbers posted today saying that there were over 4,200 new cases of the virus here in Ohio, 33 more deaths. That takes the number of total cases up to more than 225,000 in this state. Now, that is one concern for voters here in Ohio, but their major concern is the economy, joblessness, workers needing employment, and they overall, according to our early data, show that they believe that Trump can handle this more than Biden. But again, every poll is very, very tight. And this is a toss-up state. This is showing that the results are tied between Trump and Biden. But again, this could be a very historic signpost for the election. There have only been 2 exceptions where Ohio didn't call the presidential winner. In fact, if you just look back at history, whoever wins Ohio lends itself to winning the presidency, winning the nomination. So we're awaiting those numbers. The polls closed at 7:30, though anybody who is in line still could be seen and still could cast their ballot. But again, those numbers for COVID, a big concern, and a lot of people are looking at joblessness. And like you guys are talking about in studio, the ability for Ohio to flip between red and blue is certainly something we have seen.
Pretty hard and fast rule. Republicans do not win the White House if they don't win Ohio. Adrian Bankert, thanks very much. Let's go back to Florida. Now 25,000 votes or so separate Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Tom Yamas, Donald Trump is ahead.
Yeah, he's ahead, and I'll tell you one data point right now that to me is the most interesting so far. The absentee early vote, 77% of the expected vote in. That's going to be the early vote. And look at these numbers, George. The conventional wisdom was that Democrats were going to blow out Republicans in the early vote. And in Florida right now, it is neck and neck. Every time we look at the state, it's getting closer and closer. But what we have to keep our eye on right here is this section of the state right here. We're talking about Pensacola, the Panhandle. That is Trump country. The votes are still out there, and it's important because this is such a close race. One of the problems, besides Miami-Dade County, for Joe Biden is that he's underperforming in some Democratic counties, places like Osceola. He has a big lead there, but he's underperforming from where Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago. We look at Orlando, which was ravaged by COVID, especially the economy there. He's doing a little better there. That's a good spot for him. And he's made some gains in places like Jacksonville, Duval. This is a Republican county. He's winning right there. It is so close right now, George. We're going to have to keep our eye on this state minute by minute because we're talking about thousands of votes at certain parts of the night.
Okay, Tom Yamas. Mary Bruce, what is the Biden campaign telling you about Florida?
Well, all day long they have been telling us that they knew that Florida was going to be a toss-up. They, I suspect, are poring over these numbers just like we are. Look, in areas like Miami-Dade, for instance, they never expected to do as well as Hillary Clinton did there, but I suspect they are very surprised to see just how close it is in that area right now. They have spent a lot of time, really the entire Biden team, fanning out across the state in these final days. Joe Biden was in Florida today, the candidate's wife, Barack Obama, Biden's not-so-secret their biggest weapon in this race in many days. Obama was in Florida 3 times in just the last 2 weeks, including in that critical Miami-Dade area. So they put a lot of effort into trying to get out the vote there. And so much of the message there, of course, on the pandemic as they try to target senior voters. I think especially about one moment in particular, Biden, during one of his 3 trips to the state, speaking to a group of seniors and saying how many of them this year haven't been able to go out and hug their grandchildren, trying to directly tie the president's handling of this pandemic to their own personal lives, to their own families. That is a message that the Biden team is hopeful will resonate in the state. But man, it is very close right now. I know they are looking at these numbers just as closely as we are, George.
They certainly are. Cecilia Vega, the president changed his registration earlier this year to vote in Florida.
Yeah, George, I think it's hard for a lot of people to remember because we think of Donald Trump as a New Yorker, but he is now a Florida resident. The First Lady just voted in Florida this morning. He changed his residence from New York to Florida not too long ago, and this is a state that he has visited more than any other during the course of his presidency, some 82 visits over the course of the last 4 years, and he has been there numerous times over the course of this election and spent $78 million down there in Florida. And our team is hearing from sources who are telling us that the president, George, is over the moon with the numbers that he is seeing come in from Florida, especially Miami-Dade. I think they thought that the Democrats would have an advantage at this stage of the night, looking at the early voting that was happening there on their end. So they are clearly very pleased with what they are seeing at this point. And we're also told, George, that President Trump inside is watching these returns between the residents and the East Room here in the White House where that event is taking place.
Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much. Nate Silver, let's remind everybody what happens to your projection if Donald Trump actually wins the state of Florida.
So, yeah, let's see. He's at 10%. It's going to shoot way up if he wins Florida. It's going to take a little bit of time to calculate here. But Trump, if he wins Florida, is much more in the running. He's about a 1 in 3 chance of winning overall. The one silver lining for Biden a bit is that this seems to be mostly concentrated among Cubans in South Florida. It might not translate to other parts of the country. But, you know, Florida would be the first step toward a Trump upset.
Okay, Nate Silver, thanks very much. Let's take a look at the key state of Georgia right now. Let's pull that up. We've got about 11% of the expected vote in, and Donald Trump has the lead. Tom Yamas.
Yeah, let's take a look at Georgia right now. We do want to say, though, there is a lot of the vote that is not in Georgia, and that's important because you have the state of Georgia, and then you have the state of Atlanta and the suburbs, and 50% of the vote for the state of Georgia is going to come out of here. So, George, it is still very, very early. Any signs for either campaign? Look, there's a lot of red counties. Georgia got redder in those red counties after 2016, but the blue counties expanded. They got bluer. So many people moving to Georgia. Right now, it's tough to say whose state this is. Only 11% of the vote in, and a lot of the Atlanta metro area still needs to come in. But we can't talk about Cobb County. Cobb County, once the home of Newt Gingrich, and at 63%, with 31% of the vote in, Joe Biden's overperforming Hillary Clinton. If he's going to win Georgia, he has to win big in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs. And tonight, right now, if this holds, and this is the trend, that's good news for Joe Biden.
One of the other ones, and I don't know if you can pull it up. Can you pull up Gwinnett County?
It's not in yet. We don't have information for it yet, but that was one of the counties that Hillary Clinton flipped 4 years ago. We're going to be watching it closely so far. And the reason why we don't have information, I want to explain this to our voters, we want to make sure we have enough of a sample in to kind of say who's winning what and the votes have been counted. We're not there yet, so we're not going to touch it, George.
What are we seeing in the exits there?
A couple of things out of Georgia, George, to take a look at. First of all, let's take a look at, they just switched this up on me right here. Let's take a look at Georgia's job performance. 50% approve of the job that President Trump is doing on the all-important issue. 51%, though, say the pandemic is most important. But I've been diving into some of the numbers in Georgia. The racial and ethnic makeup, minorities making up 4 in 10 Georgia voters. That matches the 2016 numbers for Hillary Clinton. When it comes to moderates, even 39% with conservatives, that also matches 4 years ago. Now, this is interesting. In Atlanta, strong support in Atlanta brought Clinton to within 5 points of Trump 4 years ago. That is up slightly to 20% of the voters. There's a slight uptick there. But again, he's holding his own in the exit polls, the president in Georgia. They're giving him the edge in handling the pandemic moving forward as well.
TJ Holmes is in Atlanta. What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, we're here on the ground here, and you all made those important points there about where I am. I'm standing in this Atlanta metro area where, yes, this is a big state, 159 counties, but 50% of the vote is wrapped up in 4 counties right here in this surrounding area. And you've been talking about Cobb and Gwinnett counties. Those 2 counties, yes, Hillary Clinton lost this state by 5 percentage points, but she picked up Gwinnett and Cobb County. Those are 2 counties that are the 2nd and 3rd most populous counties in the state of Georgia. And she was the first Democrat to pick up those 2 counties since Jimmy Carter, the son of Georgia, did so back in 1976. So this is a big deal here if they can perform, if Joe Biden can perform well in this area. Now, we might not know for some time. We're expecting to start, George, getting some results here. It's 8 o'clock now, but we talk so much about all the early votes that came in. So how long is it going to take to get those? They didn't count them before today, but they started processing them before today, essentially collecting all those memory cards, essentially opening the mail-in ballots and getting them ready. So essentially all they had to do tonight, George, was click a button and to count those votes. So we should start getting some of those results of all those early ballots, all those early votes that did come in, that record-setting 3.9 million. We should start getting those pretty soon that give us an indication. But yes, it's so critical here in these 4 counties how Joe Biden performs compared to how Hillary Clinton did. She lost the state, but that's why Democrats thought there was an opening, there was a chance, there was something here. They were making some inroads once they started doing a deep dive on the numbers from 4 years ago, George.
TJ Holmes, thanks very much. Georgia's neighbor, Tennessee, has just come in for Donald Trump. Tennessee and its 11 electoral votes will go for Donald Trump. Also, Donald Trump has now picked up the state of Indiana and its electoral votes. So it's still quite early in the night. We have to be patient. Every state that's gone has gone the way it was expected to go. 6 states for Joe Biden, 4 for Donald Trump. Long night ahead. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird.
Please stop.
When I see
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished.
Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Josh, did you kill your wife? And I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of a killer.
Now, new details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a 3rd hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. It's all about you.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now, imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
And we're back with our coverage on Election Night 2020, and we can say now that Mitch McConnell in the state of Kentucky has been reelected to the Senate. Mitch McConnell has been the Republican leader. Too early to say whether he'll continue to be the Republican leader, but we can say he will continue to be a senator. Mitch McConnell has won tonight. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Virginia. It's still too early for us to project about 26% of the expected vote in, and right now it appears, Tom Yamas, that Donald Trump has a sizable lead.
Yeah, it's still really early, as you mentioned. I want to blow up Virginia here because it's a little smaller in our map. Here's part of the problem right now, why we don't have a good sense of what's going on. The D.C. suburbs, Alexandria, Arlington, that entire area, Fairfax, that's going to be 25% of the vote, and a lot of that so far we don't have in. But where Donald Trump is winning, he's doing really well, and he's actually overperforming in some areas. When we look at Henrico County, this was a county Democrats won pretty decisively 4 years ago. You can see 57 to 36. Tonight, right now, with 36% of the vote in, Donald Trump's on top. In the swing area down here in the Hamptons Road area, Virginia Beach, Donald Trump barely lost 4 years ago. Tonight, he's up, and he's up big. But again, it's still very early in Virginia, George. We're still waiting for a lot of the vote to come in. You see a lot of these red counties. This is the same way it looked 4 years ago, yet when the blue filled in, that's when Democrats won.
Tom Yamas, thanks very much. Now let's pull up Texas. Seemed to become a battleground late in the game of this campaign.
Yeah, so we take a look at Texas. A lot of the vote not in yet. What we do have, of course, the most important county in Texas, the biggest county, Harris County right here. This is Houston, 56 to 42. He's matching Hillary Clinton so far. One of the big reasons Democrats thought this area was in play, that Republicans were vulnerable, is because Donald Trump underperformed from Mitt Romney, and he did it in an area here. I actually want to check one of these counties. Fort Worth, this is Republican territory right next to Dallas. This is Fort Worth. It's neck and neck with 80% of the vote in. That's actually very good news for Democrats. Democrats have to be very happy by that number. Just north in the suburbs of Fort Worth, Denton, this is also a Republican county, 45-52. But you can see right there, George, Joe Biden, he's building on Hillary Clinton, what she had. He's overperforming there. Still a lot of the vote out. You'll remember all of East Texas, that's going to be Trump country. The border is going to be more for Democrats. We'll be watching Austin, Bexar County, San Antonio, and, of course, the ring counties around Houston.
Okay, thank you. Marcus Moore is in Texas. And, of course, Marcus, Texas, one of those states where the early vote produced more than 100% of the 2016 vote with days to go in this campaign.
Yeah, George, that was really the major storyline heading into this election. More than 9.5 million people casting their ballots early here in Texas, and that, as you said, surpassed the 2016 vote entirely. And so certainly there has been a lot of enthusiasm heading into tonight, and the polls just closed here in Harris County and in most of Texas, but they are still open out to our west in El Paso. So, of course, a few people know that Texas actually straddles two different time zones, and the votes are still being cast out there in El Paso. But we anticipate that in the next few moments, we will see the activity here at the Harris County vote headquarters pick up quite a bit. This is where those poll workers will be bringing in the various ballots from the polling locations, nearly 800 of them in Harris County alone, and they will be counting them here tonight, George. And so far, things have gone smoothly here. Only a couple of polling stations opened late because of technical difficulties, and so that has been good news. Also, the weather was perfect here, and both sides of this campaign, the Republicans and Democrats, encouraged by that, and certainly, clearly, when we talk about the voter turnout, it has been massive here in Texas, and it is the reason why Democrats feel like they can turn this historically red state blue, and of course, time will tell if that happens, George.
Marcus Moore, thanks very much. Dad, you're there in Austin. Texas has been changing. The question is how fast?
Well, it has been changing. It was a state that Mitt Romney won by 16, then Donald Trump won by 9, and then Beto O'Rourke finished 2.5% behind Ted Cruz. And so it's been changing slowly. Donald Trump has speeded that up somewhat. But I think one of the key signs is this is going to be a very close race. I mean, usually, George, when we're here, we've already called Texas and we're moving on. A Democrat hasn't carried Texas as president since 1976. Denton County, which Tom mentioned, I'll just say, and I looked at the data, Denton County is 98% in. That's a county that Hillary Clinton lost by 20 points. It's a suburban county that has been traditionally solid Republican. Donald Trump is only 7 points ahead in that county with 98% of the vote in. that shows what's happening in the suburban areas.
Okay, Matt Dowd, thanks very much. We can project another state for Donald Trump right now, West Virginia. West Virginia and its 5 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump. Only 10% of the expected vote in it, but that is a clear win tonight for Donald Trump. So let's take another look at the board. Right now you see Joe Biden has 44 electoral votes. Donald Trump has 42. We have a long way to go on this election night 2020. We'll be right back.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Wednesday night, get ready for a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
all new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television. ABC News honored winner for the 2nd straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Television. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source. ABC News, straightforward. Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers. That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff.
Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Live from ABC News election headquarters in New York City, here again, George Stephanopoulos.
We are back. It's 8:30, and these polls have closed in one more state, the state of Arkansas, but it's too early to project that state right now. Right now, it seems like Joe Biden has, we're going to go to the state of North Carolina right now, where Joe Biden is fighting it out with Donald Trump. Tom Yamas, what's the latest we have on that? It appears to be a Biden lead right now, but a lot of vote yet to come in.
Yeah, right. And a data point we want to talk about right now as we blow up North Carolina here is the early vote in. 78% we estimate will be early vote here in the state of North Carolina. And look at this, George. Joe Biden is up by 10 points, and that's important because we have to put that into perspective as we look at the rest of the state. He's leading in the early vote now. The president's team has said they're going to win on Election Day when people actually vote in person. But when we look at the research triangle, this is the areas of Raleigh and Durham. We're talking about Duke and UNC, all the universities right now. Joe Biden's overperforming from Hillary Clinton. This is 82% in. This is a great trend right now because for Joe Biden to win, for the Democrats to win in this state, they have to run up the scores in both the research triangle and the triad. These are communities that have pharmaceutical industries, they have tech industries, and they obviously have the universities. They want to run up the score there. Another key county we're watching here is New Hanover. Why are we watching this? Well, it usually mirrors how the state does, right? And a Republican, I should say a Democrat actually, hasn't won this county since Jimmy Carter. Joe Biden's up right now. It has a good mix of people that live here. You have upper middle class suburbs, you have retirees, you have military families, you have people who work in the entertainment industry. So this is a key county we're watching. It's incredibly important. The city is Wilmington. And for anything else, one of the reasons why we love this, it's a hometown of Michael Jordan, George. That's important, all right?
Okay. Lindsay Davis, you're keeping an eye on 3 counties in North Carolina?
Yes, that's right. These 3 counties that have the highest number of COVID cases right now all voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Also want to report there were 67 deaths in North Carolina from coronavirus on Tuesday. That's the highest number that they've ever reported. Everything that we measure in North Carolina is on its way up, talking about hospitalizations, positivity, cases, and deaths as well. Of course, North Carolina was famous for that dust-up, that infamous dust-up now between the popular Democratic Governor Cooper there in North Carolina when President Trump wanted to have the convention there, and cases started spiking at that time. Then he planned on moving it to Florida. The cases started spiking there, ultimately moved it back to North Carolina just for kind of the bare bones roll call. But North Carolina not going in the right direction.
Okay, Lindsay, thanks very much. And what did the exit polls say there, David?
Really interesting when you take a look at opinions of both of these candidates in North Carolina. Opinion of Donald Trump, 52% unfavorable there, underwater, obviously, from those numbers. When you look at Joe Biden, favorable, 49 to 47. And when it comes to handling the economy and COVID, 49% trust Donald Trump. Very close there, though, really negligible. But when you laser in on the pandemic, 51% say Joe Biden would be better moving forward. But a couple of key things, differences from 4 years ago. When you take a look at independent voters, right now, Biden is ahead 6 points with independents. Donald Trump was ahead by 16 points 4 years ago over Hillary Clinton. So Joe Biden right now with independent voters in North Carolina. Moderates broke for Hillary Clinton 20 points 4 years ago. They're breaking for Joe Biden by 34 points 4 years later. He's improved upon moderates. The suburban vote, this is interesting. Right now, Donald Trump ahead. Suburban votes 58 to 40%. That includes suburban women. Going with Donald Trump, 56% to 43%. And one last little note, given what we've heard from Tom and Lindsay. In Raleigh-Durham, 20% of the votes last time. Well, right now, they're breaking 59 to 39 for Joe Biden. He's ahead by 20 points. Hillary Clinton was ahead 22 points with the exit polls 4 years ago. So he needs to make up some ground there if he wants to catch up to where the Democrats were 4 years ago.
Okay, Byron Pitts, you're there in Raleigh.
Well, George, I have to tell you, these vote numbers, early numbers, still early, make both campaigns nervous. The Trump people told us early on they expected to be down maybe 5 to 8 points. The Biden people said they expected to be up 10 to 15 points, and right now there's about a 9-point difference. North Carolina is vital to the Trump campaign. The president has visited this state 11 times in the last 3 months, Mike Pence 8 times, compared to Joe Biden twice, his running mate 4 times. And George, in Southern terms, for Joe Biden, winning North Carolina would be good gravy. It's an indication that he may do well in the Sun Belt states. But for President Trump, winning North Carolina is the full chopped barbecue platter with hush puppies. He needs to win this state. As one of his campaign people told us, George, they see North Carolina as their white flag state. If they lose this state early, that is a bad sign for what may come tonight.
He's got to win North Carolina. He's got to win Florida. Mary Bruce, the Biden campaign not giving up on North Carolina, yet they're still pushing the vote.
Not at all, George. In fact, we have been noticing on Twitter many Biden campaign aides urging voters to stay in line, saying, do not move, don't go anywhere. Your vote has to be counted tonight. In fact, both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris tweeting out, just stay in line. This is, of course, a critical state, and it's one where the Biden team believes when they look at their data that it's a state where Donald Trump today has to overperform where he was in 2016. They say that Trump tonight has to win 62% of the election day vote to pull this off in North Carolina. And poring over these early results, these early exit polls, one of the figures that David just cited sticks out to me among moderates, which broke for Clinton by 20 points in 2016. Now today it's 65-29% for Biden. If that holds, that is the largest Democratic advantage in exit polls that we've seen in this state, George.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. We just talked about Florida. Let's take another look at Florida right now. Now 91% of the expected vote in, and it does appear, Tom Yamas, that Donald Trump is opening up much more of a lead.
This does look good for Donald Trump right now. There are not a lot of places for Democrats to make up this vote. It is still very, very close. But, George, the story of the night is Miami-Dade County. Look at these totals right now. Again, Hillary Clinton 4 years ago, she comes out of Miami-Dade County with plus 300,000 votes, and she still lost. And tonight, if we look at it right now, the spread less than 100,000 votes. Republicans were successful in trying to tie Democrats and Joe Biden, even though he made it very clear publicly he's not a socialist. They were very successful, it appears, in maybe possibly doing that, tying him to that. It was the same thing that happened to Andrew Gillum 2 years ago. Everyone thought he was going to win the state. He was a popular mayor from Tallahassee, and he lost to Ron DeSantis. Speaking of Governor DeSantis, let's go to his county, Volusia County. This is a Trump barometer. President Trump is where he needs to be, 54%. That's exactly where he was 4 years ago. Another Trump barometer state, Fort Myers, Lee County. You look where he was 4 years ago, 58. He's at 59. So just do the math, George. He's winning where he won before, and he did better in Miami-Dade County. It looks like it could be his night. It's still early. We still got 9% of the vote to go here. But again, like I said, it's going to be hard for Democrats to make up the vote.
Rahm Emanuel, what do you make of that underperformance in Miami-Dade?
Well, I think probably the president's done what Tom just said, a really good job with the Cuban community, the Venezuelan community, Latin America as a whole, and Central America. And there's an underperformance there in the African-American area. But I would say one point if I could, to flip to North Carolina.
Okay, let's put North Carolina back up.
Is the Democratic counties, you're getting 84% reporting, yet only 62% reporting in the state. So this thing's going to tighten in a way. But I do think you see a trend across the country as you kind of extrapolate data that Biden is doing much better among both independent voters, white voters as a whole, and clearly suburban and senior voters, but not doing as well in the African-American vote.
I was going to ask
Yvette
about that right now. He seemed to have resistance, particularly among young African-American black men, all through this campaign.
You know, I think to start out, there wasn't a real strategy, right? That was the challenge. He couldn't quite confront, and we talked about this a lot on the program, he couldn't confront his past with the crime bill. Donald Trump was taking credit for criminal justice reform in certain places, particularly in Florida, as you remember, the reenfranchisement of former incarcerated people, and he just couldn't gain ground there. And I didn't see the strategy. There were a lot of organizations in certain states that were specifically targeting black men, but Florida was unfortunately not one of them. We should see those numbers be quite significant in places like Georgia, where there was a specific effort for black men in that state. So hopefully they will show up. But I think that was the challenge, his failure to really confront his past on criminal justice reform. You know, there was also some conversation about Kamala Harris's past there as well. And there was not a clear black male agenda, unfortunately, that was consistent throughout the campaign that may end up costing them.
George, three states, George, that I would tell you I'm seeing and hearing about. In Florida, from Republican leaders, I'm hearing there's just no place for Joe Biden to make up 220,000 votes, and that eventually we'll wind up calling Florida for Trump. Second, in North Carolina, the Trump campaign is very encouraged by the early vote numbers that they've seen, and they think, based on what happened today at the polls, and it's still happening, that they're going to be able to make it up and win narrowly in North Carolina. And lastly, in Pennsylvania, and we're seeing this all over, in Philadelphia, there has been a real underperformance by African-American voters in returning their mail-in ballots. They've been seeing this for about 10 days. They were hoping it would come and close tonight. They haven't seen that closure. So we're seeing that. We're also hearing about double-digit underperformance of African-American voters in the city of Cleveland. If those trends continue, all of those trends are very helpful to Donald Trump.
Byron Pitts, what do you make of that?
Yeah, George, you talk to black Democrats in North Carolina, it's a head scratcher, it's disappointing. Consider this, George, that North Carolina has the 7th largest black population in the country. In fact, there are more HBCU, historically black college university students in the state of North Carolina. So this is a state with an established black middle class in every major city in this state, but yet Biden isn't doing as well, or there hasn't been as much black support for him or enthusiasm. Consider this, in 2008, when Barack Obama won this state, one of only 2 Democrats to win here since 1976, 75% of the black vote came out for Barack Obama. For Hillary Clinton, it dropped down to 64%. And so it's always been curious concerning what would black turnout be for Joe Biden tonight. And George, it says a lot about the psychology of people. Certainly the turnout for Barack Obama was huge huge for Barack Obama in 2008 because that spoke to pride and optimism. Make no mistake, the vast majority of black voters in North Carolina are not fans of President Trump. So in 2008, we saw the power of hope and pride. And now we're seeing if anger and frustration would be enough to energize black voters. And so far, it seems the answer is no.
I want to bring Terry Moran in on this as well. We saw a series of messages from the president on this whole issue. He talks about law and order. He also talks about to African Americans directly on issues of criminal justice, says that he's the best president for black Americans since Abraham Lincoln. At the same time that Joe Biden is going back to Charlottesville, calling the president a white supremacist.
Well, I think a couple of things are happening. One is that President Trump is clearly diversifying the Republican Party. It's hard to argue with that tonight, given the results in Miami-Dade County and what we're seeing if it pans out among black men. It could be that there's a gender divide in the black community that we haven't seen before, with black men more comfortable with President Trump's persona and maybe with his message of, get rich under me. And that is obviously something that every person would want, but maybe more appealing. I think there's something else at work as well. Look, the Republican Party 8 years ago, after they lost to Barack Obama, had a big heart-to-heart talk with itself and said, we have to go and find voters in diverse communities. Donald Trump seems to have done that. And at least so far, that is one of the headlines of tonight.
We will be keeping an eye on it. Sarah Fagan?
Donald Trump competed for this vote in a way that no Republican has ever done so. When you look back at the Republican convention, every night in prime time, there were African-American voices on criminal justice reform, on the economy. And we shouldn't forget that. He deserves credit for that. And it appears that he is maybe not getting a lot of black votes, but maybe people haven't turned out tonight, and that in some way has had an impact.
Mary Bruce, what are you hearing from the Biden campaign about this phenomenon right now? Do they believe it?
It's a good question. Tonight they are being tight-lipped on that, of course, but it is interesting when you look at the trajectory of this campaign. Joe Biden is often accused of taking the black vote for granted. A lot of attention was paid, especially several months ago at the beginning of this pandemic. Biden on Charlemagne the God, his radio show, saying to black voters that if they don't vote for him, quote, you ain't black. That, of course, did not sit well with many in the black community, despite the fact that, of course, it was black voters, especially female black voters, that helped in many ways rescue Joe Biden's candidacy, helped deliver him this nomination, especially in the South. And Joe Biden has continued to face this criticism. I think, of course, about the moment in our town hall in Pennsylvania just a couple weeks ago, a young black voter, Cedric Humphrey, stood up and asked Joe Biden, what else besides saying, you ain't black if you don't vote for me, are you going to do for the black community? Joe Biden gave him a very lengthy answer about his economic policies and how he plans to try and bridge some of the gaps that we see in this country. But I talked with Cedric after that, and he said that while, yes, he would be voting for Joe Biden, that it was going to be begrudgingly because he simply felt that Joe Biden was just the lesser of two evils. That's not exactly the kind of enthusiasm that may necessarily drive a lot of black voters, especially young black voters, to the polls. And, George, I can tell you, I also spent a fair amount of time this summer out in the protests in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. It was, again, a sentiment you heard a lot from young black voters saying that Joe Biden, they felt, just didn't get them.
Mary Bruce, thanks. Cecilia Vega.
Well, it has been a real juxtaposition from this White House over the last 4 years, George, when it comes to race relations, and speaking to communities of color. This has been a president who has been among the more inflammatory presidents when it comes to race and speaking to the African American and Latino communities than we've ever seen in our lifetimes. He retweeted a video that showed a racist baby. There was that supporter who yelled an epithet at a rally at an event down in Florida. The list goes on and on. We mentioned Charlottesville. So I think we have to wait to see before we can declare whether President Trump has expanded ethnic communities in the Republican Party. I think time will tell on that. And you have said he has, when I mentioned the juxtaposition, you've got the things that the president has done, and then you've got the things that the president has said, which is that he has done more for African Americans in this country than any president since Abraham Lincoln. I think we will find out later tonight, tomorrow, down the road, whether communities of color in this country actually believe that and feel like this is a White House that has embraced them with open arms over the last 4 years.
Lots more vote to be seen. It's coming up on 8:47 here in the East Coast. Right now, Donald Trump has won 5 states, 42 electoral votes. Joe Biden, 6 states and 44 electoral votes. We'll be right back.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
This is what being live is all about. This is ABC News Live, the 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Breaking news, live events, streaming nonstop. Original breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, and it's all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want.
ABC News Live.
Streaming everywhere, right to you. ABC News Live. It's that easy to go there.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. Please stop.
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished.
Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Josh, did you kill your wife? And I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of a killer.
Now, new details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Coming up on 9 p.m. in these polls have closed in 26 states. Want to take a deeper dive now again on the state of Georgia. Tom, why don't you go up to the map here? Let's take a look at Georgia right now. 26% of the expected vote in right now. Donald Trump has a sizable lead.
Yeah, let's take a look at the absentee early vote right now. 78% of the total vote. And you can see right now, Donald Trump, again, breaking the conventional wisdom. We only have about 31% of that early vote in reporting, but he's up nearly 10 points in the early vote. That's good news for Donald Trump. So as we take a look at the map, you see a lot of these red counties. We're going to take a close look, George, throughout the night right here. This is Georgia's black belt. You know, the black belt cuts through several southern states. It's an area of high concentration of African-American counties, but they really haven't had turnout since President Barack Obama ran for president so many years ago. There's a lot of red counties in there. That's not great news for Joe Biden at this hour. We're keeping a close eye on places like Cobb. This is the greater Atlanta metro region. Joe Biden at 63% right now. He's really overperforming from where Hillary Clinton was. This is where Democrats need to win if they want to win the state of Georgia. I said this earlier. I'll say it again. It's so important. 50% of the vote is going to come from this area right here, Atlanta and the greater suburbs. At 43-56, Joe Biden has to feel pretty comfortable right now. A lot of the vote is out, but again, if he can win Atlanta, the metro region, and build off Hillary Clinton's lead she had 4 years ago, it could be a good night in Georgia.
I want to go to TJ Holmes. And TJ, I know I had read something that came in over the wire. I wonder if you have any more information. There seemed to be a voting issue in Fulton County, Georgia.
Yeah, so you remember earlier, George, I told you things had gone smoothly here. Well, about that. Well, it turns out there was actually a pipe that burst at State Farm Arena, which caused a delay in processing ballots. Let me explain what that means. State Farm Arena is where the Atlanta Hawks play ball, smack dab in the middle of downtown Atlanta, which is in Fulton County. So you have the largest polling station, which is also in the largest county in this state, had an issue this morning with a pipe burst, a water leak essentially. So there was a delay in processing ballots there so they could clean up the area. Now, I talked to Fulton County. Their officials say this caused about a 2-hour delay. Talked to the Secretary of State's office. They say it was about 4 hours. So we could see a delay in getting some of those numbers of those ballots. It's important to note none of the ballots were damaged or destroyed. That is not what we're talking about. They just had to get the workers out of that area for a little while to get it cleaned up. And what we're talking about here is processing of ballots. So it just slowed down this process of getting those things ready to go and then tabulated. So we don't know how long that could take. Now, of course, Fulton County is a Democratic stronghold here, so not necessarily in question, some would argue, or much debate about how things could go. But if we have a close race, those numbers could be important as we move forward and could delay us, George, in the night in deciding or determining what the numbers are. And one more important note. We know that absentee ballots, talk so much about early voting and the absentee here in Georgia, set all of those records. Well, the state of Georgia tells us that 225,000 absentee ballots arrived today. So those could take several days to process. Again, all of this is only important if it turns out to be a really tight race, when we're going to get some of those numbers, George.
TJ Holmes, thanks. Let's take another look at Ohio. 50% of the vote is in right now, and right now, Tom Yama's big lead for Joe Biden.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting because this would change the election and the race at this hour right now. The numbers are very good for Joe Biden. He's winning in all the areas he needs to win: Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. And if we go in a little closer, Cuyahoga County, one of the biggest counties in Ohio, you can see he's overperforming. It's the same story in Franklin, Columbus, the capital. Joe Biden at 76. He's up nearly 16%. But before Democrats get way too happy on this, I got to show you guys something. Let me click back on Ohio, go to the absentee vote here. Look at those numbers, George. 20%. He's up 20 points, nearly 20 points on the early vote. That's really important. That's maybe one of the reasons why Democrats look like they're doing really well in Ohio. That being said, though, I will say I'm looking at several counties, especially in this area up here near Toledo, the Rust Belt area. These are counties that President Trump flipped 4 years ago. Tonight, I can count 4 or 5. Joe Biden's on top.
Okay. Heidi Heitkamp, what do you make of what you're seeing in Ohio?
Well, I think it's great news for Joe Biden because it speaks to what's going to happen in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, all up in the Great Lakes. And I think that it doesn't surprise me. I think that one thing we haven't talked enough about is women suburban voters. And we're seeing them turn out in record numbers. We're seeing this kind of wave there that's going to change the outcome, I think.
Heidi Heitkamp, thanks very much. Coming up on 9 p.m. polls about to close in 14 more states. We'll be right back.
Coming up, we're tracking all the results, with polls set to close in 14 more states, including the pivotal battleground states of Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Texas, on ABC.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
ABC News. Straightforward.
Raise the crest. Stand down. I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers. That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff. Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, free on Apple Podcasts.
This is an ABC News special. It all comes down to this. The choices couldn't be more different.
We're never going to lock down again. We locked down, we understood the disease, and now we're open for business.
I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm not going to shut down the country, but I'm going to shut down the virus.
Live from New York City and across the country, Election Night 2020. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
9 p.m. in the East. Polls have just closed in 14 more states. We've said it so many times this year, 2020, it's a divided country. And at 9 p.m. in the East, it's a divided vote for president right now. Joe Biden has won 6 states. Donald Trump has won 6 states, 48 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 44 for Joe Biden. As we said, the polls have just closed in 14 more states. And we can project that that Joe Biden will win the state of New York, Donald Trump's former home state. 29 electoral votes there. Not a surprise there in the state of New York. We cannot yet call the state of Texas, and it's 38 electoral votes. It's a close race there right now with 65% of the vote in, 50 to 49 for Joe Biden. In Michigan, this is one of those key states in the northern tier of the Midwest that Joe Biden has to win if he's going to be president this time around. And what we're seeing right now with 12% of the expected vote in is that Donald Trump is ahead. And John Carl, this could be one of those areas in Michigan there where we're seeing that red mirage.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Michigan's going to count its votes slowly. It's going to count in-person day of voting earlier. You're going to see more of that early vote counted later, which is going to be good for Biden and for the Democrats.
Let's go to Juju Chang in Michigan. Coronavirus has been such a big issue there in the state of Michigan. And of course, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who has seen protests over lockdowns. And of course, Donald Trump, President Trump, went in there and took that on head on.
Absolutely, George. And what is happening in the Sun Belt is making the upper Midwest all the more important. And we're seeing that it was a fight to the finish here in Michigan. President Trump's final stop was in Grand Rapids in a sort of 2016 superstitious nod to his come-from-behind victory. But it was a squeaker, only 11,000 votes. And that's where he's doubling down on his base, energizing his base. In fact, there were 15 visits from President Trump or a family member or a major surrogate in the past 2 weeks. And they're very excited about their ground game here. And yet, Joe Biden is trying desperately to seal the cracks in the blue wall. And he did that in part by outspending President Trump dramatically here. $27 million in spending by Trump, $52 million by Joe Biden. And not only that, Kamala Harris has been energizing the African-American vote here in Detroit, as well as his not-so-secret weapon. President Obama campaigned with Joe Biden over the weekend to energize that all-American African vote. But what we're seeing in the exit exit polls is that crucial suburban vote, George. And what we're seeing is that began to shift in 2018. And Governor Whitmer, as you referred to, she issued some of the harshest lockdowns and ended up having a lot of blowback. There were those armed protests that you recall in that Capitol dome right behind me. And you see that it caused a lot of energy and anxiety on both sides of the debate. And what we saw is that President Trump began attacking Governor Whitmer. He referred to her as that woman from Michigan. And when I interviewed her, she said every time President Trump called her names, online hate and threats against her went up. And I think some of the suburban women I talked to reacted to that. The exit polling is showing that men favored President Trump in the suburbs, 56 to 42. But when you get a gender gap and you look at women, that number is the reverse, 55 to 44, more than a 10-point advantage for suburban women. And surely there are suburban women who still support President Trump and his economic policies. But when I went to the polls today, time and time again, the women I spoke to said they are tired of the fighting. They are tired of the name calling. One mom said to me, President Trump says and does things that if my kids did them, I would punish them. And when it came to handling of the pandemic, one lifelong Republican mom said to me, it brought out the mama bear in me, that when it comes to the health and safety of my kids, it made her turn away from the Republican Party for the first time and vote Democrat for president and vote for Joe Biden. How that will play out in Michigan, George, we'll see.
Juju Chang, thanks very much. The polls have also closed in the state of Arizona. I want to take a look at that right now. It's 11 electoral votes in play. This has become a battleground state as well. Longtime Republican state, but Joe Biden is putting up a fight there in the state of Arizona. Whit Johnson is there.
George, yes, Arizona, the polls are closing right now in Arizona, and we spoke to the Secretary of State not long ago, and she told us that they expect things to run pretty smoothly here on election night. They hope to release the first chunk of results about an hour from now after the polls close. They've been counting ballots in this state for 2 weeks already. The early vote, a big part of the story here. An estimated 85% of all of the ballots cast came from early voters. Of course, Democrats think they have the edge on the early vote. The Trump campaign thinks that they got the edge on the votes that will come out today. But as you mentioned, this is a traditionally red state. Democrats hope that they can turn this state blue in a presidential election for the first time since 1996. That was Bill Clinton. Before that, you have to go all the way back to 1948 and Harry Truman. But it's turning into a true battleground state. There are changing demographics here, a population boom, including one of the fastest growing Latino populations in the country, making up more than 30% of the residents here in Arizona. But another thing to consider, perhaps the biggest prize of the night here in Arizona, is the independent vote. 1/3 of voters here in Arizona describe themselves as independents, and that's something that we're going to watch here tonight as we start to get results. George.
Okay, Whit Johnson, thanks very much for getting more results. Now we can project that Joe Biden is going to win the state of Connecticut. No surprise there, of course. Joe Biden will win the state of Connecticut. You see him filling in the blue up there in the northeast right now, but more polls are closing, including in the state of Minnesota. That is a state that Donald Trump made a play for. His team has said that they believe they could flip that from blue to red this time around. Alex Johnson is there. Alex Perez is there, excuse me. Alex?
Hey, George. Yeah. Hey, George. Yeah. So Minnesota really has become a sort of second-tier battleground state. Trump losing Minnesota by just 45,000 votes last time. That's less than 2% of the votes. So both campaigns have been spending a lot of time here in this state, both here just on Friday, because they really feel that these 10 electoral votes could go in any direction. Now, let's be clear. The state of Minnesota has not selected a Republican for president in about half a century. But this year, things are a little bit different. You can see this mural behind me here. You can see that's a picture of George Floyd. There are murals like this across the country. What happened here in May with the death of George Floyd really motivated and inspired people to become involved, particularly young people. And so we're seeing some of that here play out in this state, especially in the blue counties, in Ramsey County and Hennepin County. You see a lot of those young people coming out to vote. And I can tell you, in talking to some of those young people, George, they're not happy with either candidate. they don't like Biden and they don't like Trump, but they realize that they have only certain options in front of them right now at this point. Now, President Trump and his campaign really playing to the law and order message to a lot of people here in Minnesota. You might remember back when those protests first happened here at the beginning of the summer after George Floyd was killed, a police station was burned down to the ground. Several blocks here in Minneapolis were reduced to rubble. And so that message of law and order, of defending police officers and what law enforcement stands for is really resonating with a lot of people here. But then you also have that other side of people who want to see change. We've talked to a lot of people, George, who say racial equality, racial justice, those are the most important things that are motivating them when they head to the polls, when they cast their ballots today.
Okay,
George?
Alex, thanks very much. Let's stay in the Midwest now. Let's take a look at Wisconsin. 10 electoral votes at play. Of course, Donald Trump won there by 22,000 votes last time around. Deborah Roberts is there in Wisconsin. And we saw those both. We've seen this COVID surge in Wisconsin over the last several weeks. Also, protests in Kenosha over the summer where the president hit hard on that law and order theme.
That's exactly right, George. So it's been sort of a complicated mix here in Wisconsin. But I have to tell you, if there's a state that's going to cause a little bit of heartburn tonight, it will be Wisconsin. And that is because of absentee and mail-in votes. Usually about 6% of the votes would actually be handled that way. This time, about 60% of the votes, George, were done early, absentee, mail-in. And that means about 2 million votes now have to be handled. And unlike Georgia, which got a chance to prep some of those votes a little bit early, Wisconsin had to wait until this morning, 7 a.m. So they just got started processing all of those votes this morning. The Election Commission folks tell us it's probably going to be a late evening, but that does not mean that there are going to be problems. They are going to be working very hard. And as you said, the big problem is COVID. I mean, this state is getting slammed by the coronavirus. Almost 6,000 new cases, 52 deaths today. It is a big problem, and it is an issue that has been hovering over this state. So for that reason, a lot of people are just sending their votes in. We saw a woman dropping her ballot off this afternoon. The polls just closed, so they're going to be processing those votes overnight. And in Milwaukee, for instance, there are poll watchers there. Each party got 15 people standing around watching all of those votes as they come in. But so far, so good. The weather has been good. 2 weeks ago, there was snow. Today, there was sunshine. So at the very least, things seem to be moving fairly smoothly here in Wisconsin, but it may be a long night. George?
Okay, Deborah Roberts, thanks very much. We're just hearing now that we can project the state of South Dakota for Donald Trump. Again, not a surprise right there. South Dakota will go to Donald Trump tonight. So seeing the red states are filling in red, the blue states are filling in blue. All of the battlegrounds still in play. One of the biggest ones right now, Ohio, the state of Ohio, 55% of the vote in. Tommy, it's getting a little closer now.
Yeah, a story is developing in Ohio. Let's take a closer look right now at this state. George, I looked at the map as it is right now, and we're still waiting for some areas to come in, including Akron and some of the suburbs outside of Cleveland. But looking at the map right now, the way it looks, it actually resembles more 2012 than it does 2016, and that's good news for Democrats right now. A lot of the swing counties that President Trump won 4 years ago, they have swung back for Joe Biden. One county that we're looking at right here, this is Delaware County, the suburbs outside of Columbus. This used to be a Republican bastion. You can see President Trump won it 4 years ago. Look at these numbers now, and we have 75% of the vote in. Joe Biden's doing really, really well. He's up, do the math here, 40. He's up 13% just in Delaware County. One thing I do want to note, and we've talked about this earlier, about whether it's a red or blue mirage. When we look at the early vote, Democrats are doing very well in Ohio with the early vote. Joe Biden on top, 60% to 40%, so 20 points right there. But from the momentum and from the blue counties, from the big cities, Joe Biden is winning where he needs to be.
Okay, Tom, thanks very much. Cecilia Vega, as we've said, Ohio, a must-win for the president.
A must-win for the president, George, and our team is in touch with sources close to the president. And I got to tell you, we are hearing that the Trump campaign is becoming increasingly worried right now about what they are seeing in that state. They are working here in the White House in these war rooms where they are watching these returns come in, and they are becoming increasingly nervous about what they're seeing out of Ohio. One senior source telling our team it's much closer than it should be. They're kicking themselves, frankly, for not having gone there more. The Trump team did not hold any rallies in Ohio over 2020 compared to holding 5 in Pennsylvania just this past weekend alone. They had to cut ad spending there in the final weeks because of this cash crunch that they were
that they've been facing in the campaign, foregoing millions of dollars in ads. And George, you'll remember this, it's a minor incident really in the grand scheme of the things we cover here in this White House, but worth pointing out on a night like tonight. Remember this controversy from just a few months ago where President Trump called for a ban on Goodyear, on the brand Goodyear, after he accused the company of banning its employees from wearing his MAGA gear. Goodyear is based in Akron, Ohio, George.
As is LeBron James, and he's been quite active in this campaign as well. Mary Bruce, I mean, we saw that Joe Biden at the last minute went from Pennsylvania, jumped into Ohio on the final day, hoping to make a play for this state.
Yeah, they believed that what they were seeing on the ground showed that this state was in play, that it was increasingly competitive, and that appears to be reflected in these numbers that we are seeing so far tonight. Biden's team is encouraged very much so by what they are seeing coming out so far. And I want to hit on a point that Tom was making about suburban women, because in these preliminary exit data, suburban women backed Trump by 9 points in 2016. But tonight in this preliminary data, suburban women are narrowly backing Biden. That bodes well for Biden's team, not just in states like Ohio, but also as you look to those other critical Midwestern states like Michigan and Wisconsin, possibly even in Pennsylvania, as they try to rebuild that blue wall that Donald Trump smashed through 4 years ago. And it also speaks, George, to the power of women voters who tonight could determine the outcome of this election. They were critical to delivering Donald Trump the White House. Women voters tonight could be critical to taking it back.
Martha Raddatz, you spoke to a lot of them on the road this summer.
I spoke to a lot of them, and I can tell right now that there are a group of women I spoke to around those counties, around Columbus, Ohio, that Tom Yamas was talking about, who are very happy tonight. A group of women, several of them were Republicans, and they switched to Joe Biden. It was right on that character issue once again, character, chaos. Juju Chang talked about that as well. That's what those women were concentrating on. And let me channel the late Cokie Roberts here for a minute, George. This is the centennial of the 19th Amendment. Women have only had the vote in this country for 100 years, and as Mary said, they may determine that tonight. But you also want to listen to what Donald Trump has been saying to women, especially suburban women, which doesn't land very well with many of them. I'm also getting your husbands back to work. They want to get back to work, right? You know how many women are in the workforce. In 2019, 76 million women aged 16 and over were employed. George.
Martha Raddatz, you channeled Cokie well. We miss her tonight. David Muir, what do the exits say about Ohio right now?
Well, it's really fascinating about Ohio. I wonder if we're going to come back to what Heidi Heitkamp said earlier with President Trump sort of talking down the mail-in vote across this country in the weeks preceding the election, that perhaps this is what we're seeing unfolding in Ohio tonight, because the exit polling tells a different story. A lot of the issues that Joe Biden sort of laid out, he said, we got to take care of the virus first. The economy will come with it second. The Ohio exit polls show that they believe fix the economy, open the country first before the coronavirus. They prefer Trump to Biden handling the economy. They prefer Trump to Biden handling the pandemic. So given what we're seeing in the exit polls, and again, one of the other trends that we're also seeing is Donald Trump is not underwater with approval in Ohio. It's one of his strongest showings tonight in the preliminary exit polls so far. So this would show portends a good night for President Trump in Ohio. I do wonder if the get out the vote and the early voting campaign by the Biden camp, the push for an early vote, is actually helping them there significantly tonight.
A lot of vote yet to come in the state of Ohio, 51-47 right now. Nate, let's take a look back at your forecast and show everybody what happens if Ohio goes from red to blue, if Joe Biden happens to win.
So what I have here is if Trump wins Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, in which case it's a more competitive race, but Biden counters by winning Ohio, then that all of a sudden undoes those positive results for Trump. You'll see the numbers come up here. Biden's going to, I think, wind up here north of 99%, because if Trump loses Ohio, he's going to lose in all probability Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, which are bluer states, and that makes for a losing map for him most likely.
And it really does show the importance right now, because you came into the night showing Donald Trump with about a 10% chance. So even if you give him those three key states we've been looking at in the Southeast right now, Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida, you flip Ohio and it turns everything around.
Right. So he has to win both paths, right? He has to win the southern path and hold the states that he flipped from Clinton in 2016 in the north. If he only does one, then it'll be close. It will not be a Biden landslide, but Biden would still be elected president.
It is so close right now. Nate Silver, thanks very much. We have to take another quick break.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird.
Please stop. You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished. Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Josh, did you kill your wife? I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of a killer.
Now, new details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. It's all about you.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now, imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Coming up on 9:20 in the East, that's what it looks like right now in the key state of Florida. 93% of the expected vote in, and Donald Trump has opened up about a 300,000 vote lead over Joe Biden. I want to go to Senator Rick Scott, Republican of Florida. You think this one is over in Florida?
Well, I predicted all along that Donald Trump was going to win Florida. He's right on the issues, and he's done an unbelievable job with the Hispanic vote. You can look at those Miami-Dade numbers and see how the state completely changed. This race completely changed when, Donald Trump put all that effort into dealing with the Castro regime, the Maduro regime, and it paid off with the Hispanic vote in our state. I won the Hispanic vote, and look, in the end, it's going to look like Trump did a really great job with the Hispanic vote. Well,
he was able to pull away by even more than you did in 2018, correct, so far?
Oh, absolutely. I've had very close races. But look, in Florida, we don't like high taxes, and Joe Biden's talked about the biggest tax increase in the history of the country. That doesn't go well. We like our law enforcement. We're at a 49-year low crime rate. The Democrats defunding the police didn't help Joe Biden. The economy is really important to Floridians, and Donald Trump is in a better position on that. And again, just doing what Donald Trump has done against the Castro regime and Maduro is just the opposite of what Obama and Biden did. So it's helping Trump a whole bunch in this state. I thought he'd have a big win. I put up an ad for him to get the vote out. They got the vote out today to make sure he's going to have a big win.
Senator Scott, thanks very much for your time. We can now project that Joe Biden is going to win the state of Colorado and its 9 electoral votes. Matt Gutman is there in Denver, Colorado. Matt, what do you make of it?
Hey, George, not a very big surprise here. Democratic candidates have won the past 3 elections here in Colorado. In the Senate, it's been 4 of 5, and not very unusual. This is something that has been forecast in the polls all along. I want to give you a sense of where we are. This is the polling station here in Denver, and What you're looking at looks like watching the paint dry. It looks boring, but all of these people are working within the system to count the ballots. It's incredible, the tenderness with which they are caring for each ballot. A lot of talk tonight about whether or not the elections are rigged, whether or not there has been fraud. I can give you a sense that here it is working like a well-oiled machine. George.
They know how to count votes by mail in Colorado. I've done it for a long time, Matt. Thanks very much. 9 states for Joe Biden, 7 for Donald Trump, 89-51 in the Electoral College. We'll be right back.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
all new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television. ABC News honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in television. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source. America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers. That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff. Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come. I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Live from ABC News election headquarters in New York City, here again, George Stephanopoulos.
9:30 now in the East, and we can project two more states now for President Trump. Donald Trump will win the state of Alabama. He will, with 10% of the vote in. Of course, that is a strong Republican state. Big Senate race there as well. Republicans hoping to pick up a Senate seat there. Tommy Tuberville over Doug Jones. We don't have a projection on that yet, but we can say that Donald Trump will also win the state of North Dakota tonight. So he's picked up two more states there for the president. We see 89 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 63 for Donald Trump right now. And right now, let's pull up the state of Virginia. Take a look at what we're seeing now in the state of Virginia. 41% of the expected vote in. Right now, Tom Yamas, we're still seeing Donald Trump with a large lead, but only 41% of the expected vote in.
Yeah, George, it's a little strange. This is kind of interesting right now in Virginia. As you know, Democrats have been winning this state. Let's blow it up here. A lot of these red counties, the rural counties, as you go further west, you're going to get into coal country. But I want to blow this up here. This is the Democratic suburbs around D.C., this area right here. You have Alexandria, Fairfax, Arlington. These are areas where Democrats need to run up the score, and that's how they end up winning the state. Places like Fairfax, it's actually pretty close when you look at 4 years ago. Joe Biden's underperforming, and that's why I say the numbers are a little strange right now in Virginia. Prince William County, here's another thing. It's neck and neck. This was a county that Clinton clearly won 4 years ago. So it's sort of interesting when we look. I was trying to see if this was part of the early vote. Maybe Republicans came out to vote early there. Unfortunately, right now, all we have is that 57% of the vote is going to be early vote. We don't see who's on top right now, George.
Okay, Tom Yamas, thanks very much. Let's bring in Senator Tim Kaine. Tim, we were just hearing from Tom Yamas. It shows we don't have a lot of the vote in. I take it you're feeling a bit more confident about your state?
Yeah, George, the AP called Virginia at 736 because of the early vote totals are so strongly Democratic. About 70% of the 2016 total got cast early, and we know who those voters are. Just by way of comparison, the AP called Virginia at 11 o'clock in 2008, at 1 a.m. in 2012, and at 10:30 in 2016. So calling Virginia 3 hours earlier suggests very, very strong night in Virginia. Mark Warner's won big. We feel good about our congressional races. And because Virginia is now heavily suburban, we think that also probably bodes well for suburbs in places like North Carolina, Georgia, Philly, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and the upper Midwest. So we feel really good in Virginia. We hope it sends a message and is an indicator elsewhere.
Of course, you were part of the Hillary Clinton campaign 4 years ago. What feels different to you this time around?
I mean, the tremendous surge of early vote. I mean, that shows not only people taking and, trying to protect themselves from COVID, but it also shows intense energy. And George, as you know, we know who the early voters are. We don't know how they voted, but if a Tim Kaine votes early, we can see, well, Tim Kaine has only voted ever in Democratic primaries. That's a Democratic vote. And we're seeing this really strong early vote in many states that gets often reported a little bit later, even if it comes in early. Early vote is strong. The early vote is disproportionately young people compared to 4 years ago. And then states that are battlegrounds that never have been, Georgia, Arizona, Texas, for gosh sake. We are competitive in states where it's very, very tough.
So you're feeling good about the whole night, not just your state?
Yes, absolutely.
Senator Kaine, thanks very much for your time tonight. We can project now the state of South Carolina is going to go to Donald Trump. South Carolina, strong red state. Donald Trump won it 4 years ago. He is going to win it again tonight. Janae Norman is in South Carolina.
Yeah, hey, George, you know, we expected this. This is a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat for president since 1976. President Trump's support has remained steady, and exit polls showing that the president approval rating is about 55%. But one thing that we're watching big here is, of course, the Senate race here. It is a fierce battle, and Republicans are on defense. Few places is that more true than here in South Carolina. Think about this. Lindsey Graham, he is a household name, a 17-year incumbent in a Republican stronghold. He was expected to easily win re-election a few months ago, but now he is in the fight of his political life. He has been on TV, forced to essentially beg for donations to try to beat Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison at one point raised more than $57 million in just over 3 months. He is one of those candidates that Democrats are hoping can help them flip some red seats blue. So that is what we're watching tonight here, George.
Okay, Janae, thanks very much. We can't project that yet, but you just heard that chime. That means we can project that in Colorado, the Senate race in Colorado, former Governor John Hickenlooper is going to defeat Cory Gardner, the incumbent Republican senator. So that is a pickup for the Democrats tonight in the Senate. John Hickenlooper has defeated Cory Gardner, John Karl. Magic numbers in the Senate: 3 if Biden wins for the Democrats, 4 if he doesn't.
Yeah, and this was probably their top target to pick up. Cory Gardner tied himself quite closely to Donald Trump, actually tried to avoid comment whenever there was anything controversial. Hickenlooper, the former governor, of course, briefly ran for president, recruited to run for this seat. No surprise that this is the first pickup. They've got to pick up a few more.
Matt Gutman?
Just adding to what John was saying, Hickenlooper, two-time mayor, two-time governor of the state, beloved. He ran for president briefly, then decided to run for Senate. This is not a surprise, but as Janae was saying, this is a key state that the Democrats wanted to pick up to turn from red to blue. And frankly, this is a purple state that is leaning blue, George. And Cory Gardner didn't have much of a chance. He voted towards the GOP in the Senate 89% of the time in a state that we were saying is purple leaning blue. It was unlikely that he was going to win this. The polls had favored Hickenlooper all along, but this is one state, possibly another in the Rocky Mountain region, Montana, that could flip from red to blue tonight. George.
Matt Gutman, thanks very much. Mary Bruce, your day job is covering Capitol Hill, and I wanted you to pick up on what John Karl was just talking about there. Cory Gardner, one of those senators who, whenever President Trump got in a little bit of trouble, he disappeared.
Yeah, it was amazing how all of a sudden Cory Gardner would become very hard to find in the halls of the Capitol in those moments. Look, as John was saying, he was viewed as the most vulnerable Republican tonight. There are several others that Democrats are keeping a close eye on. And I have to say, George, Republicans know that there is a very real risk that they could lose their Senate majority tonight. In addition to Colorado, which we now know the result in, they're keeping a very close eye on Arizona. They feel very strongly, Democrats do, that they have a chance to defeat Martha McSally in that race. They're also feeling optimistic about possibly Iowa, Maine, and North Carolina. The Senate race in Georgia is now looming as a very real possibility, with actually 2 races there tonight, and both Republican senators at risk there. You know, Democrats can see that they are likely to lose a seat in Alabama, Doug Jones's seat. That means if you go back to the math here, if they lose that seat, they would then need to pick up 4 seats. Democrats would if Joe Biden wins, because in that instance, Kamala Harris would then become the tiebreaker as vice president. If Donald Trump wins, that means the Democrats would then have to pick up 5 seats if they do lose that race in Alabama.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Pennsylvania. We've been calling that the most critical battleground of the night tonight. 19% of the expected vote is in right now. Joe Biden has a large lead. And Tom, why don't you try to run through some of the key counties in Pennsylvania that we're going to be watching tonight?
You know, George, we were just looking at Pennsylvania a little closely, and the numbers are really all over the place. There's not really a narrative we can really talk about at this point. Look, for instance, I'll give you Scranton right here. Lackawanna, Donald Trump is on top in Joe Biden's hometown, and he's overperforming there for Republicans. We go just south, Lucerne County. This is Wilkes-Barre. This is a swing county that Donald Trump won 4 years ago. Tonight, Joe Biden's on top, but again, only 29% of the vote in. On the big cities where Democrats really have to win, Allegheny, Pittsburgh, you can see how high Joe Biden's there. That's the type of number Democrats want to make sure they can hold in Pennsylvania, not only in Pittsburgh, but also in Philadelphia. Let me open this up a little more as we get to Philadelphia and the suburbs, George, look, I don't want people to have a freak out here. 93%, that's obviously incredible, but there's only 9% of the vote in at this moment. Let me squeeze this down a little bit. We'll look at one of the suburb counties, the exurb counties around Philadelphia, where Democrats have to run up the score. Look, Joe Biden's doing good, but again, George, it's so early. There's nothing really to pull from.
Do we have anything from Erie County yet? And then I want to bring John in.
Yeah, Erie County, we have Donald Trump, barely won this. Just by a percentage point 4 years ago, but it was one of those swing counties that Obama won. And you can see right now, I mean, John, it's neck and neck, but 4% in. 4% in.
But I've got to say, if you go back to the Philly suburbs, Montgomery County, Delaware County, you see Biden with nearly an 80-point lead. It's 16% of the vote in. What's really important here, though, George, is, as I understand it, almost all of the vote that has been counted are people that voted today on Election Day. Pennsylvania didn't start counting
in those collar counties of Philadelphia.
Yes. This is day of voting, so they still have to count all of the mail-in vote. They didn't start opening the envelopes until today. That's going to take a long time. It's actually going to take several days. That mail-in vote is expected to really lean heavily towards Joe Biden. So I think it's interesting. It's still a small amount, no doubt, but I think that it's interesting already in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Those used to be swing areas. Now they're trending deep blue.
I mean, early indication, again, 17% of the expected vote in, but it's day of vote.
We have some exit polls from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania, when you compare it to Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania actually in the exit polls showed Donald Trump's worst performance so far tonight when it comes to his approval rating. Let's dive in here and see what the exit polls show us. Again, these are preliminary, but the exit polls, as we mentioned earlier in the night, do reflect both, as John Carl was mentioning, people who voted today and those who were voting early in person. As you can see, let's try to refresh that and see if the job performance comes up. 52% disapproving of Donald Trump and his performance. Whether or not to contain the pandemic first or rebuild the economy, you can see overwhelmingly they say we've got to take care of this coronavirus in the U.S. And they say that Joe Biden is the best to handle that. When you look at the economy, Donald Trump and Joe Biden neck and neck in Pennsylvania. The most important issue in Pennsylvania, the economy, pandemic, they're behind. It's interesting. Let's look at independents in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden owning independents so far as the exit polls are concerned in Pennsylvania.
Chris Christie, neighboring state of yours in New Jersey, always going to be an uphill battle for the president, but essential.
Listen, vital, has to have it. And I do think, though, that the things that we're seeing still, I think this is very early, but there's underperformance in Philadelphia, even though those numbers don't indicate it. That's what I continue to hear. And so I think they're still feeling like they can turn out their day of vote in a way that's going to make it very close. No one's predicting a win there yet that I've heard, but no one's bemoaning a loss yet either.
Rahm Emanuel, the Biden campaign probably spent more time, energy, money, focus on Pennsylvania than any other state.
There's no doubt about it. And the vice president, do you remember in your town hall when a guy stood up and was sheriff? Oh, I know you. You're a sheriff. I mean, he's got to feel like a precinct captain or a county exec. They look at these numbers, and I would say there's a regional thing that's starting to happen. You look at the Ohio number, you look at Pennsylvania numbers. They're early, but there are trend lines where Joe Biden is outperforming in the suburbs. He's outperforming among working class, and he's also outperforming in the rural areas, even though you don't count it. Just minimizing the losses is doing well. So he is doing really in those areas well. The vote total, in the sense of how many people show up in the suburbs versus working industrial areas versus urban, is going to be what's really interesting. Because I think the urban areas may not be performing to the kind of baseline of what people were expecting.
Yvette, are you seeing that across the country right now? The urban area is not performing as well.
That's not what we're seeing, and that's what I want to make sure I reserve comment until we see that. We're seeing a lot of, particularly in Ohio, Hamilton County, Cuyahoga County, Franklin County, huge turnout there. I mean, we're running not just on the presidential, but down ticket. We're winning all these races down ticket as well, and so I think we'll just have to wait and see. Some of those places, like Cuyahoga, for instance, people were still in line up until about a half an hour ago.
Those are
in
the
Cuyahoga
watchwords
County.
for tonight. Wait and see. And we're going to be doing that with every state all night long. Sarah Fagan, the Trump campaign was hoping after that last debate where they thought that Joe Biden made a blunder by talking about ending fossil fuels and the issue of fracking. They thought that could give them headway in western Pennsylvania and coal country in these final 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think it probably will give him some headway. Whether he wins it or not, we'll see.
I think Pennsylvania, to me, is the best case of the mirage, the red and blue mirage. We don't know whether these are early votes, whether these are absentee votes, whether they're day of votes yet. And so, you know, I would go back to something Nate Silver said, has been repeating over and over tonight. Wait till an entire jurisdiction is in before you get too excited.
I think we have to do that. There's no question about that. Eva Pilgrim, you spent a lot of time with suburban women in the state of Pennsylvania.
That's right, George. And specifically with moms, a lot of them telling me they usually avoid talking about politics amongst their mom groups. But this year, that just wasn't possible because so many of the things that are very political right now directly impact them and their children. In their text chains, you can see what some of those things are. They're talking about masking their children. They're talking about virtual learning. Are you sending your kid back to school? Should we go on vacation this summer? Those were all the discussions that they were having. And a lot of these moms telling me that, you know, previously in other elections, they weren't really that plugged in. They've maybe voted in a presidential election prior, but this year they thought it was very important to vote. George?
Eva Pilgrim, thanks very much. Let's go to Nate Silver before we go to break. Nate, let's take one more look at your magical I shouldn't call it magical, your very scientific forecast there. And what happens if Pennsylvania flips this year, went to Donald Trump 4 years ago, goes to Joe Biden this time around?
So again, I'm going to make things a bit more suspenseful. Give Donald Trump Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, but then if you give Biden Pennsylvania, it's going to show us the numbers going up. We'll see where it calculates here in a second. It's not quite the same as Ohio because it's a little bit of a more purple state. But you see Biden's up to 91% despite losing the South. If he wins back Pennsylvania, they'd have to hold the Wisconsin and Michigan.
That's really interesting. It kind of brings you back to where you were at the beginning of the night.
It narrows the range, right? If Biden wins Pennsylvania, things are not going to fall apart from him in the Midwest. He's also not going to have any type of landslide victory. But it would bring the probability back. It would mean that you have a close election where Biden is favored, but it's this kind of wide range of possible outcomes.
Chris?
Just heard from Republican leadership in Ohio that Trump has now pulled ahead in Ohio and that they believe Trump will win between 1.5 and 2 points.
Right now, what we're seeing on our board right now is 64% of the expected vote in. Joe Biden just ahead by a little bit, but you're saying you're getting that from your sources right now inside Ohio. They're looking at the vote that they're still waiting on, and they believe, at least, we're not ready to say that, they believe that Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio. Have to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Stand down. I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime. 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Oh, look at the clear sky.
Hey, clear sky, guys. Made it through.
Change is difficult, but this is my home. This is where I want to be.
I love that town. I'm not going to bail on it.
It's a big deal. New beginning.
Rebuilding Paradise. Network premieres Sunday at 9 on National Geographic.
Hello?
This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers.
That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff.
Lock the door.
We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
We are back now. ABC News election headquarters in New York, coming up on 10 p.m. in the East. There you see the electoral map. Joe Biden has won 9 states, 89 electoral votes. Donald Trump has won 10 states and 72 electoral votes. All the big swing states still in play right now. Let's take a look now at the state of Georgia, one of the key battlegrounds at the end of this campaign. 16 electoral votes, 46% of the vote in right now, and Donald Trump has a fairly sizable lead right now. Tom Yamas, what more can we say about where Georgia is right now?
Look, we can't stop talking about Georgia yet because it's still very, very early. And the reason why I say that is because look at Atlanta right now. We're still waiting for a lot of the vote to come out of some of these huge counties where Democrats are going to run up the vote. Joe Biden's doing well in these counties around Atlanta where he needs to win. He's building off Hillary Clinton's lead that she had here. He's expanding the map even further. The problem for Joe Biden is at the red counties, President Trump's base, and this is something we're seeing throughout the country, at least in some of the big battleground states. President Trump's base is showing up and they're voting. And a lot of this, you see all the red around here, almost the same as 2016. The blue counties are the same. What we have to find out, what we have to figure out is what the count is at the end of the night in the Atlanta counties. If Joe Biden can run up the score there, he can tighten this up. But President Trump has got to be happy with this number at this hour right now. But again, a lot of the vote out in Atlanta.
Lindsay Davis, what are you seeing in Georgia?
You know, Georgia is 6th overall when it comes to the total number of coronavirus cases in our country. I think that one good image is that Governor Kemp today dropped off his ballot in a ballot drop box because he's quarantining because he came into contact with somebody who tested positive on Friday, though it's worth noting that he also did take a rapid test and is subsequently tested negative. But look, we're seeing the same thing that we saw in North Carolina, where the 3 counties that are hardest hit by coronavirus, all are counties that voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. We'll remember that Governor Kemp was criticized for trying to open up Georgia early, and he then had that lawsuit against Keisha Bottoms, the mayor of Atlanta, when she implemented that mask mandate, which he later dropped. But what's interesting is, black voters make up 32% of the eligible voting population in Georgia. And a lot has been said tonight about the black voters not turning up. And I do think that it's relevant to talk about the disproportionate effect on black and brown communities. Of course, black people make up 13% of the population, but 20% of the COVID deaths, 1 out of 900 black people have died as a result of coronavirus.
Okay, Lindsay Davis, thanks very much. Let's take another look at the state of Texas right now. Not expected to be a battleground this year, but it is close right now with about 76% of the expected vote in. Donald Trump has about a 2-point lead over Joe Biden right now. Tom, what stands out?
Well, what stands out for me, George, as I put Texas here in the middle of the map so we can see it a little bigger, absentee, basically neck and neck, George. Look at that right there. Democrats had to build a lead on the early vote, especially in a state like Texas, but Republicans showed up early as well, and they voted there in Texas. Look, a lot of red counties. Texas has been Republican for a very long time. Jimmy Carter was the last Democrat to win this state. Some things that are good for Democrats are around the Dallas County suburb areas, and we'll show you why. So Fort Worth, which is usually a Republican stronghold, let me clear this out here. Tarrant County, 49%. It's neck and neck. President Trump won this by almost 10 points 4 years ago. We go a little bit higher here to Denton County. It's the same story. President Trump underperforming there. But here's something that's interesting. In Houston, Harris County, the biggest county so far, it's essentially the same race as it was 4 years ago. Harris County, Houston, is an area where the Democrats have to run up the score even more if they have any chance of winning in Texas, because you go to one of these red counties, George, look at that, in East Texas, it's 3-1, and it's like that all across East Texas.
Matt Dowd is in Texas. Matt, it looks like John Cornyn is going to be returned as a Republican senator from Texas, but in the final days of his campaign, he started to break a little bit, uncharacteristically, from President Trump.
Well, I think he saw the numbers in Texas and the changing nature. He's catching up to the changing nature of the state of Texas, which, as we've talked about earlier, has gone from a solid red state to now, I think, a slightly red state. I think in the end, Biden's going to get really close in this state as I look at the numbers, very close, closer than any presidential candidate in 40 some odd years. But I don't think he's going to have enough. It's those last 2 or 3 points that are really hard, but he'll get really close. The other thing I'm going to say is what's played out in Florida is not playing out in Texas. So I think I'd counsel everybody to not interpret one place as meaning it's going to affect another place. The Hispanic vote here went really well for Joe Biden, much better than Donald Trump did here last time among the Hispanic vote. So I just counsel everybody that one state, Florida, may be about Florida, but it may not necessarily be about others.
What are we seeing? Thank you, Matt, in the exit polls in Texas, David?
You know, similar to what Matt Dowd was saying, you know, some pretty decent exit polls for the president, though, who's looking at this, 55% approve. But to Matt's point on the Latino vote, which is significant, 59% went for Joe Biden, though I'll point out that Hillary Clinton had 61% 4 years ago. So Joe Biden still has some room to grow there if he's going to match her numbers.
Okay, coming up on 10 p.m. in the East, polls are going to close in 4 more states. We'll be right back.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Another week in America, a country facing a new test now.
The Wuhan airport, almost no one here.
The last flight out of Rome.
This is the nursing home just outside Seattle. Dozens of people were just rushed off this cruise ship.
This is ground zero.
It is shut down.
Another ambulance just pulled out.
Now they're headed to the hospital.
Time is of the essence.
You can see the ship behind me.
This is the first time tests have been done here.
Morning, afternoon, evening, late night, 24/7. ABC News. There for you.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. Please stop.
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
This is an ABC News special. America is voting in record numbers. So who will be your next president?
I'm the candidate of police officers, the middle class, law-abiding, hard-working American patriots, and others.
There will be no blue states or red states, just the United States. I'll work as hard for those who vote against me as those who voted for me, because that's what a president is supposed to do.
Live from New York City and across the country, Election Night 2020. Now reporting, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
Coming up on 10 p.m. in the East, and we have a long way to go on this Election Night 2020. That's where things stand right now. Joe Biden has won 9 states, 89 electoral votes. Donald Trump has won 10 states, 72 electoral votes, but all of the big battlegrounds are still out there right now. The polls have still just closed in 4 additional states. Let's take a look at that right now. State of Iowa, key state in the middle of the country, 6 electoral votes, key Senate race there as well. We cannot project a winner right there, but Kana Whitworth is on the ground for us in Iowa tonight, where she's focused on the rural vote. Kana.
Yeah, hey, George. So 75% of rural voters cast their ballot for Donald Trump in 2016. That was certainly the case here in Iowa. And this is a place where they are focused on the economy and job security. And 1 in 5 of those jobs is in agriculture. And some of those people are really hurting right now, particularly the farmers. Their crops were decimated by weather. First, they saw the drought and then the windstorm. They're battling COVID-19 and, of course, Trump's trade wars with China. Now, the federal government dumped $37 billion into aid to American farmers, but some that I spoke with here in Iowa simply said that's not enough. It doesn't make them whole, and their vote cannot be bought. One farmer in particular said he simply cannot overlook the lack of civility in the White House, and he cast his vote for Joe Biden. Now, it's important to note here that, of course, Donald Trump has a lot of support. He was made an honorary member of the Iowa Corn Growers Association, which is a big deal here. I also spoke with one farmer who said, finally, someone is standing up to China. He said, quite frankly, that is something that the Obama-Biden administration didn't do, and so he was happy to cast his vote, of course, for Donald Trump. And, George, as you mentioned, we have a really tight Senate race here. It is neck and neck. The Republican incumbent, Joni Ernst, pulling ahead in recent polls. She's trying to fend off her Democratic challenger, Teresa Greenfield. Now, some surprised that it's such a battle here for Joni Ernst. She's a rising star in the Republican Party, and Teresa Greenfield, relatively unknown. She describes herself as a businesswoman and a scrappy farm girl, but the Democrats, George, dumped $94 million into her campaign, trying to flip that seat.
Kana Whitworth, thanks very much. The polls have also closed in 3 more states. Polls have closed in the state of Nevada. 6 electoral votes in play. A lot of early voting in that state, but we cannot project a winner yet. Polls have also closed in the state of Utah. Again, a vote-by-mail state, but we cannot call that yet. 6 electoral votes. And the polls have closed in the state of Montana. 3 electoral votes, key Senate race there as well, but not enough vote in to make a projection yet. So we want to take another look now at one of the key states in that so-called blue wall for the Democrats, the state of Michigan. Right now, 23% of the expected vote is in, and Donald Trump, it appears, Tom Yamas, has a huge lead right now.
Yeah, okay, so spoiler alert, it's a little funky right now in Michigan, okay? Let me show you why. The big reason, George, is because we don't have the early vote yet. okay? We don't have the early vote in yet, so we can't sort of work that into our numbers so far. But here's one reason why these numbers at this point don't make sense. Wayne County, you have Donald Trump on top, but there's only 3% of the vote in. Macomb County, which is one of those really key counties that President Trump won 4 years ago, the home of the Reagan Democrats, he's way up, but he's way up from where he was 4 years ago. So again, there's not enough vote in. We're going to be looking at places like Grand Rapids. This is Kent County, where President Trump won 4 years ago. But again, these are all areas that 2 years later, Gretchen Whitmer came in that blue wave, and she was able to turn those counties back to blue.
John Carl, of course, we saw all the polls leading up to the election day in Michigan. Joe Biden was leading consistently by anywhere from 5 to 10 points in that state. This could be one of those red mirage states.
Yeah, it's either the polling was way off and a lot of pollsters should be fired, or we're seeing a bit of a red mirage here. And remember, in the state of Michigan, there's a lot of mail-in voting, and the state, in most of the state, they don't even open the ballots until today. In some jurisdictions, they started opening them yesterday. It takes time. It takes a long time. They had warned us that the vote in Michigan is likely to take well beyond tonight. So I would expect, as that mail-in vote is counting, that's Democratic vote, that margin, those numbers change pretty dramatically.
Let's take a look at the state of Michigan, of Wisconsin as well right now. Let's pull that up. 30% of the expected vote in. A little bit closer there, Tom. More of the vote has been counted, but Donald Trump is slightly ahead.
Yeah, slightly ahead. This is one of the states he won. You know, it was very close here, 23,000 votes. We're going to be talking about Milwaukee. This is so important. 15% of the total vote. Joe Biden is where he needs to be, but he's got to bring that number up a little bit. We only have about 30% of the vote in, so he can catch up there. We're also going to be talking about the WOW counties. This is Waukesha, Ozaukee, and some of the others, Washington as well. In Waukesha, President Trump won 4 years ago. This is actually a pretty good lead for him at 60% in. He's holding what he had 4 years ago. That's exactly what he has to do. Still not enough vote in. You know, like some of these swing counties I can take a look at here. Price, a tiny county, Donald Trump on top, building on his lead there, but only 12%. So it's a little hard to sort of pull data out of here. In Green Bay, Brown County, you know, Donald Trump's sort of performing where he needs to be. But again, it's so little here. Kenosha, of course, we want to talk about as well because it had such a big role. We were talking about the social justice that swept across the country with the Jacob Blake shooting there. Donald Trump on top. He won this just barely 4 years ago. He has a big lead right now. But again, I just think that there still needs a lot of vote to come in.
While we're looking at the blue wall, let's pick up Pennsylvania again. Let's take a check back in and see where Pennsylvania is. At this point, 23% of the expected vote in.
All right, we got a lot more vote in here, George. So let's take a look. We'll start with Scranton, Joe Biden's hometown, Lackawanna County. President Trump on top right there. He's going to like those numbers. Joe Biden is not. Just south of that, Lucerne. This is Wilkes-Barre, PA. Joe Biden behind again there. You know, he's doing better than Hillary Clinton. That's some good news, but President Trump still on top. And we got to talk about Philadelphia again. We're still waiting for a lot of the vote to come in here. Philadelphia, giant margins, but this is what John Carl was just talking about. George, we just don't have the vote in, only 9%. Those counties around, this is Bucks County. This is kind of one of Montgomery, excuse me. Let me see if we can find Bucks over here. Philadelphia, let's go over here. Yeah, Chester. Oh, we don't have Bucks yet. Chester's another big suburbs around the Philadelphia area. Joe Biden doing well there. So, I mean, look, George, 23%, and it's hard to kind of pull any kind of narratives at this point so early in the night. Pittsburgh, we'll look at this because this is where Joe Biden has to run up the score, and there he has at 80%. That's a great number for him, but only 15%. And George, it's tough at this hour.
It may be a little early to start to play out narratives, but Emmanuel, let's try to do a little bit. This is looking a little bit right now like a replay of 2016.
Well, I'm not sure. The problem we have is you have so much early voting, and every state is different of when they count that. And so we're looking at counties, and you can extrapolate. I mean, you look at how close Ohio is. It's basically 6% right now, better than it was in 2016. But you look at, I think it's still going to come down to Pennsylvania. I think this entire election is going to be basically still what everybody thought going into it. But if you look at where Joe Biden was performing in Ohio, Akron, Toledo, Hamilton County, Cuyahoga County, Franklin County, you can extrapolate that that's very good news for both Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But again, each state counts their early votes. Some of them count before the day of the polls close. And then in Pennsylvania, they don't start counting them. They have still got 3 more days of ballots to come in. So it's going to be very hard, but you do have trend lines. that show a performance about working class, older voters, suburban voters, college-educated voters that
But
are
so
good.
far, we haven't seen, Chris Christie, any big surprises yet. We haven't called any of the battlegrounds at all, and this is going to take
It's
some
going to
time.
take some time. But, George, I think what we know now tonight, after 10 o'clock, is that the predictions that this was going to be a big Biden win are done. And really what this is going to come down to now is a few states, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arizona. Everything I'm seeing, we haven't called anything yet, but Republicans are very optimistic in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Iowa. And so it's really now
and Ohio
and Ohio. So you're really coming down to Pennsylvania, Arizona, and get Ohio to a place where everybody is comfortable. So no one was predicting that 24 hours ago. They were predicting 330 votes for electoral votes for Joe Biden.
As you're talking, I just got some news in my ear, and I want to pull up the state of Arizona because this is potentially big news right here from the state of Arizona. 70% of the expected vote is in from Arizona. There was so much early vote in that state. More than 90% of the 2016 vote came in before Election Day, and one of the things you see right there is that Donald Trump is now losing the 70% of the expected vote into Joe Biden, 55-44. Tommy Amos, let's take a dive.
Yeah, George, at this hour, this is a major story and a major development. Not all the vote is in right now, but Maricopa County, this is going to be 3/4 of the total vote in all of Arizona. Joe Biden is on top. 4 years ago, this was a county, let me show you, 4 years ago, this was a county that President Trump won. It was tight, but that Joe Biden has this lead right now is very encouraging news for Democrats. We're going to go to the Democratic stronghold now of Tucson, Pima County. This is where Look at this number, George. I mean, these are the kind of numbers that Joe Biden would want in some of those other battleground states with 80% of the vote in. I'm going to go to this county right here, Yuma. President Trump barely won this. This is a border county. You have conservative agricultural families, but you also have the Latino vote there as well. President Trump looks like he's doing well. He's building on the lead he had 4 years ago. But again, Maricopa County, and Maricopa really, it's a reflection of America. You have big cities like Phoenix. You have medium-sized cities like Scottsdale, agricultural. You have the universities, the tourist areas. Joe Biden's looking at this number right now. It's going to make him very happy.
David Muir, what do the exit polls say about Arizona?
A couple of things coming out of Arizona right now that are really interesting. First of all, independents outnumber Democrats and Republicans in that state. So let's go right to that. 52% of independents, according to the exit polls, are going with Joe Biden. And when you go down some of these numbers, President Trump's job performance, 53% disapprove of his handling of the job as president. The opinion of Trump, 54% have an unfavorable view. So underwater, and more so than many of the states we looked at so far. Look at Joe Biden. 50% favorable. And when you start getting into some of these key areas, COVID, Joe Biden has the edge in handling COVID. The economy, though, is Donald Trump's strength, it appears, in Arizona, at least according to the exit polls. Got a 3-point lead there, but still very close. One more key area, George, Hispanic and Latino vote. Joe Biden with 63% of the Latino vote tonight in Arizona.
According to the exit polls. John Carl, we know there are national trends at play here, but Arizona has been a deep red state. Yep. But as what Tip O'Neill used to say, all politics is local as well. John McCain, the late Senator John McCain, a target of Donald Trump for years. Sidney McCain endorsed Joe Biden. Jeff Flake, former senator from Arizona, Republican conservative, endorsed Joe Biden.
They both endorsed Sidney McCain, spoke at the Democratic convention, and those attacks on John McCain were relentless. He resisted taking the flag down to half staff when McCain died. None of that played well in Arizona. But I do want to have a note of caution on Arizona. Arizona is the reverse of what I was saying about Pennsylvania and Michigan. Arizona is where they're counting. They've been counting the early vote for weeks. So as the day-in vote comes in, I expect Arizona to get a lot closer. And I think Governor Christie made an important point here. This is going to be a long night, and we're going to.
It could be a long week.
It could be a long week. We're going to need patience. I don't see Joe Biden running away with any of those states in the Sun Belt. We'll see what happens in Arizona, but we're going to be waiting on Pennsylvania. We may be waiting on Michigan and Wisconsin.
Nate,
George,
go ahead.
One interesting thing from Michigan Republican leadership that just came in the Senate race. In the vote by mail that's been counted so far, and it's about 25% overall counted, Senator Peters is winning by about 20 points in the vote by mail. But on the election day voting, John James is winning by 22 points. So what they're looking at least in the first 25% of the vote, is that it's going to be a very close Senate race in Michigan. We don't know yet what will happen, but there's not a blowout there, and it's doing exactly what John was talking about in Arizona. You know, it's splitting very heavy Democrat on the vote by mail, but very heavy Republican, 22 points on voting today.
The Arizona, I just got a report from the Biden campaign. The Arizona vote by mail is outperforming their model by 70,000 votes. They expected 150,000 margin. They got a 220,000 margin.
Okay, let's go to Nate Silver then and take a look at, Nate, let's look at your forecast and show what happens if the state of Arizona, red in 2016, goes to blue in 2020.
And again, we're going to give Trump Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, where he's probably the favorite at this point. But again, if Biden wins Arizona, then he's going to shoot up to, I think, around 70-some% here. It's not as important for him as Pennsylvania. It's not a Midwestern state. Actually, more than that, 75%. But, you know, Trump has to hit, like I said, all his marks, and Arizona is one where he would much prefer to have won.
Okay, Nate Silver, thanks very much. Coming up on 10:15 here in these, we have to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
Now could be a good time to have another baby.
Are you crazy? I'm in love with you. Now that I said it out loud, it does sound weird. Please stop.
You were so fine, I had to remind myself to breathe.
Let's do this.
How's your quarantine going?
Susan Powell was a young, beautiful mother. She just one night vanished.
Where is Susan?
July 29th, making sure that if something happens to me, our assets are documented.
Josh, did you kill your wife? And I'll never forget the first time that I met him. A chill just like raced up through my spine. I just shook the hand of a killer.
Now, new details, stunning new interviews.
He ends up revealing the biggest bombshell.
What will happen next? The new 2020 event, Friday night on ABC.
Admit it. These days, what you need to know
seems to change just about every day.
What is it that you really want to know, need to know?
To help you not just get through your day,
but to make the most of it. Feel smarter.
Feel better.
Feel happier.
Well, how about a third hour of Good Morning America in the afternoon?
GMA 3, what you need to know. Lunchtime at 1 Eastern, 12 Central and Pacific on ABC. It's all about you.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called you crazy. We all need someone who'll pull no punches and give it to us straight. Now, imagine getting your news like that. No bull, no spin, just give it to me straight. Straightforward news, straight to the heart of the story. ABC News, straightforward.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
Back here at ABC News Election Headquarters in New York around 10:18 Eastern Time. And we want to take another look at the state of Ohio right now. 72% of the vote is in right now. And Tom Yamas, Donald Trump has pulled ahead now of Joe Biden in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, George, we're going to need a neck brace for Ohio. I told you earlier in the night it was looking like 2012, the map. Now it's looking like back to 2016. Donald Trump has gained control of Ohio. He's swung back a lot of those counties that were looking blue, places like Wood, Ohio, this county just south of Toledo. Toledo there. You can see Donald Trump on top. He's actually doing a little bit better. But the big question is the 3 C's, Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. This is where Democrats are going to have to run up the vote. All the votes not in Cuyahoga County yet, and Joe Biden is doing really well there. He's overperforming. It's a similar story in Columbus. 66% of the vote is in, but he's up 10 points from where Hillary Clinton was. And Cincinnati, Hamilton County, this used to be Republican stomping grounds. It switched over with Obama, and tonight Joe Biden has a very significant lead there. George, the story is this. He's going to have to run up the vote in the big cities. The rural counties are sticking with Donald Trump tonight.
Well, that seems to be the question. That the margins are good in the cities for Joe Biden, but are enough voters coming out for him?
We've seen significant turnout in the 3 Cs. I mean, not just early vote, but on Election Day. I mean, they were predicting at about 2 o'clock in Hamilton County, we were at 60% of our total registration number, which is a really, really, really big deal. And they were projecting to beat 70% of our total registration number, which doesn't happen all the time. I think the big thing is these urban centers, they're counted slower. That's where most of the votes are, and they'll come in later. And I think they will make the difference, particularly because he's overperforming Hillary Clinton by so much, which means that the work is working, that the message is getting out to those folks.
The other big question, Matt Dowd, might be are Donald Trump's voters coming out in record numbers as well?
I think that's clear. I think it's even if you look at the total numbers that we think are going to be cast, it's definitely true. It was true in Florida. It looks like Donald Trump is going to get more votes in Florida this year, not only percentage-wise, but more total votes by far, by hundreds of thousands that he did last time. So it's absolutely clear. I disagree on part of this. It's not as if the African-American vote's not turning out and there's a problem. They're turning out. But the counter to that is Donald Trump's supporters are turning out even in greater numbers than they did in 2016.
Okay, let's take a look at John Carl.
I mean, you just have to say, look at those rallies that he did. He did 17 rallies over the past few days. He did something like 27 over the past week. The Republicans talked about their turnout operation. They talked about how they had invested in it for the past 3.5+ years. So, I mean, clearly we are seeing increased turnout in some of those areas, rural areas. There's no question about it.
Okay, let's take another look at the state of Georgia. 52% of the expected vote is in right now, and Donald Trump has quite a wide lead with that 52% of the expected vote, Tom Yamas.
Yeah, I know, George, but this race is far, far from over, and I'll explain why right here. We've been talking about the state of Georgia and, of course, the state of Atlanta. The city and the ring counties around it, so important. About 50% of the vote is going to come from there. Right now, the spread, if you look at it on top here between Trump and Biden, you're looking at about less than 400,000 votes, right? The problem with that is in DeKalb County in Atlanta, there's about 250,000 votes that Hillary Clinton got 4 years ago. Here in Gwinnett County, we only have 17% of the vote in, but Hillary Clinton ran up the score there, too, with 150,000 plus. So there's a lot of the vote out in the Atlanta metro area that could help Joe Biden. The story for Donald Trump, counties that he swung, counties like this, tiny little counties like this. I'll give it back over to you.
Give it back to me. We have a Senate projection right now. It's in the state of Alabama. And Tommy Tuberville is going to be the next senator from the state of Alabama, Republican. Former Auburn football coach defeated Senator Doug Jones, a Democrat who was seeking his first full term. Of course, he won a special election in 2017. John Carl, the president had a lot of personal interest in this race.
He did. This was Jeff Sessions' seat, and Jeff Sessions left the seat to become Donald Trump's attorney general and to become Donald Trump's hated attorney general. And when Sessions tried to get his seat back, the president endorsed Tommy Tuberville and worked very hard, actually, to get Sessions to lose. Not a surprise that Doug Jones is losing here. This was really a once-in-a-lifetime situation that brought Doug Jones, a Democrat, representing Alabama in the Senate.
So, Mary Bruce, one pickup for the Democrats, one pickup for the Republicans. We're back to where we started.
Exactly. We are back to ground zero essentially here tonight. If you look at the math, then, in order for Democrats to be able to flip the Senate, they now need a net gain of 3 seats if Joe Biden wins. Again, that's because Kamala Harris would then become that tie-breaking vice presidential vote. If Donald Trump wins, then they would need a net gain of 4 seats tonight. Democrats, though, of course, are very optimistic that they can still tonight gain the majority.
Coming up on 10:30, a long way to go on this election night 2020. We'll be right back.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind.
You know this is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results. The morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television. ABC News, honored winner for the second straight year with the Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence in television. More Americans choose ABC News, America's #1 news source.
Welcome to Disney Plus. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney Plus.
The reality is our country can collapse from within.
You see the white power movement on the march. Klansmen and neo-Nazis, skinheads, it's meant to incite war.
From the KKK to Oklahoma City to Charlottesville, the new documentary event special.
We just need to start talking about race.
Homegrown hate, the war among us.
This is a real wake-up call.
Streaming now on ABC News Live.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
Holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
all new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
The world may feel out of your control, but your happiness doesn't have to be. Learn the secrets to happiness. Listen to the 10% Happier podcast, free on Apple Podcasts.
Tomorrow, with the most consequential election of a lifetime finally here, wake up to real-time answers, real-time results with the most powerful team in politics, live on Good Morning America.
Live from ABC News election headquarters in New York City, here again, George Stephanopoulos.
It is 10:30 and these polls have closed in 44 states, and it is a close race so far. Joe Biden has won 10 states, 93 electoral votes. Donald Trump has won 12 states, 83 electoral votes. Not a surprise yet. Right now, that is a rerun of the 2016 map. We can add 2 more states right now, though. Joe Biden's going to win the state of New Hampshire, and it's 4 electoral votes. Donald Trump had fought pretty hard there. They thought that was one of those states they might be able to take back in 2020, but it was not to be. Joe Biden will win the state of New Hampshire, and it's 4 electoral votes, but Donald Trump will hold on to Louisiana, and it's 8 electoral votes. No surprise there. Blue state stays blue, red state stays red. So let's take another look at those key states up in the northern tier of the country: Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, the so-called blue wall. Right now, that's where things stand. Michigan with 33% of the vote in, Donald Trump has a lead. Wisconsin, 35% of the vote in, Donald Trump has a lead. Pennsylvania, 31% of the vote in, Donald Trump has a lead. John Carl, the question there is that a red mirage or is something different happening here?
I mean, in all of these states, first of all, they're going to take time to get final results. All of these states are states that do not process mail-in vote as it comes in, which is the opposite of what we see in Arizona, the opposite of what we see in Florida. So we always knew there was going to be a bit of a red mirage factor here. As they open up those ballots, as they process that, those are going to be more Democratic votes. Those numbers will change. The question is, how much will they change?
Okay, that's an important point right there. I want to come to Pennsylvania in a minute, but right now we're just getting some results in from the state of Nebraska, and Donald Trump has won not all of the votes yet in the state of Nebraska, but he has won 3 of the 5 votes in the state of Nebraska. That's the overall state vote. Nebraska, one of those states that splits their electoral votes also among congressional districts. Tom Yamas, why don't you explain that?
Yeah, okay, so let's take a look at Nebraska right now and follow along with us because it gets a little complicated. As George mentioned, Nebraska splits its electoral votes. Here is the beautiful state of Nebraska right here. We're going to show you 2 counties right here. This is Sarpy, a conservative county that makes up the 2nd congressional district. Donald Trump should be on top right now, and he's not. He won this county 4 years ago, and that's good news for Joe Biden because just above this is Douglas County, and it's like the numbers are reversed here, George. Hillary Clinton won this 4 years ago. This is Omaha right here, right? And Democrats usually always win this area, even though Trump pulled off the win in the congressional district 4 years ago. It was because of that other county. The numbers are inverted right now. Still very, very close here. To give you an idea of the size of this county, it's essentially like this. it is minuscule. But if the race were to come down, and I don't want to say it, but you know what it is, if it were to come down to 269, 269, whoever won that one county, that tiny little county, Nebraska, those would be the most important Americans right now on the planet.
That turns it into a 270, 268. We also have...
Something I want to say to them right now.
I can't believe you don't already have their number.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me there?
I don't. You should have their number. That's malpractice, bro.
I have their emails.
We do have another state to call right now. The state of Utah is going to go to Donald Trump. Again, not much of a surprise right there. Donald Trump is going to win the state of Utah and its 6 electoral votes. Even though that's the home of Mitt Romney, of course, is the only Republican senator who voted to convict Donald Trump in the impeachment trial. Let's go back now to state of Pennsylvania. David Muir, you had some exit polls from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This is just to pick up what John Carl was saying, is that these blue wall states are going to take days possibly for us to find out who actually won in these states. The Secretary of State in Pennsylvania warned us in the last couple of days that it could take till the end of the week until we know Pennsylvania. But there are some numbers here that I would think the Biden campaign would be very happy with. When you take a look at suburban voters in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump with a small edge there, according to the exit polls, 2 points ahead of Biden. But when you remember that he was 8 points ahead in the final tally over Hillary Clinton, 2 points is an improvement for Joe Biden. And you can see where he got the improvement from. When you break it down, Donald Trump still has overwhelmingly done well with men in the suburbs, but look at this among women. This is where the gender gap presents itself. In Pennsylvania, at least, we've seen this in other states too coming in. 53% of suburban women going with Joe Biden. One other thing here that was really interesting is the independent vote coming in from Pennsylvania. According to the exit polls, obviously, and these are all still preliminary, 53% of independents are going with Joe Biden. That's a flip from 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Donald Trump won independents in Pennsylvania 48-41. Now Biden ahead by, what is that, almost 10 points in Pennsylvania.
According to the exit polls, we'll see if it holds up as the real results come in right now. We want to take another look at the state of Minnesota as well. Again, that was a state that President Trump had hoped he might be able to flip, like the state of New Hampshire. Right now, 36% of the expected vote is in, and it appears that Joe Biden has a big lead. Let's go back to Alex Perez in Minnesota.
Yeah, George, and what we're seeing is that Joe Biden has a huge lead in Hennepin County, the most populous county here in Minnesota. We're seeing 93% of the vote coming in from Hennepin County, about 70% of that vote right now going to Joe Biden. Those are the kinds of numbers that Democrats want to see here in Minnesota. You know, Obama, there were 19 counties that Obama won that Hillary lost to Trump back in 2016, and the Democrats are hoping they're going to be able to win back those so-called pivot counties. Now, the important vote, the rural areas, the Iron Range, the other part of the state, we still don't know the exact numbers from that area. That part of the state typically looks better for Republicans, typically went for Trump, so we will have to wait a little bit later in the evening to figure out those numbers. But right now, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, the populous areas of this state looking good for the Biden campaign. George.
Alex Perez, thanks very much. Let's take another look at North Carolina right now. We've got the state of North Carolina with 89% of the expected vote in. It's a very close race right now. Donald Trump at 50, Joe Biden at 49. Tom Yamas.
Yeah, so we have just one county that we have no data on right now in North Carolina. The race is very, very close. We're looking at a spread of about 40,000 votes. This is Granville County right here. This is a swing county. President Trump won it back for Republicans 4 years ago. There's about 15,000 votes for Republicans, 15 to 20,000 votes. That could affect the score. I mean, this is such a close race. This was a state that President Trump outright won 4 years ago, and yet right now it's a nail-biter. A lot of the swing counties, President Trump has been able to hold on, especially in the southern part of the state on the border of South Carolina. But Charlotte, this is Mecklenburg County. This is where they wanted to hold the RNC, Republicans, hopefully to drive out some voters there later on in the year. That didn't happen because of COVID. Joe Biden's doing exactly what he has to do here. He's driving up the votes. So to win in North Carolina for Joe Biden, he's going to have to do that there and in Wake County as well. We're still waiting for some of the vote in there, but you can see Joe Biden is building on that Hillary Clinton lead in those counties. If he can keep doing that, there might still be enough vote out there, but President Trump right now on top with about 40,000 votes.
Byron Pitts, what are you hearing in Raleigh?
Well, George, I can tell you that at this point, the Democrats in the state are getting nervous. The expectation was that they knew they would have an early lead, but they thought it would be big enough that they could hold off a Republican surge. They were looking for a double-digit lead when the numbers came out, and it was only 9 points. And since that time, steadily as each half hour has passed, you've seen the President Trump gain ground, and eventually he's taken the lead. And the sense is that the Democrats may be running out of time. And George, it's still early, right? I mean, North Carolina could go either way. But at this point, one of the things that we can see is that hard work can outwork money. In this state, for instance, in the Senate race, the Democrat outspent the Republican 2-1. And in TV advertising, the Trump campaign spent in TV and radio ads. The Trump and the RNC spent $41 million. Biden and the DNC spent $56 million. And that cash difference at this point doesn't seem to be a sufficient difference for the Democrats in a state in which they felt good going into the night that they might have a comfortable lead that they could hold on to. But to this point, the Republican strategy to start close and then finish strong seems to be the direction that we're going in, George.
Byron Pitts, thanks very much. We have another call to make, another projection to make in the state of Kansas. Donald Trump is going to win the state of Kansas. Again, that's a strong red state, has always been. 6 electoral votes. He won by 21 points back in 2016. Donald Trump will win again. I want to bring in Senator Chris Coons now, Senator of Delaware, close friend and advisor to Joe Biden. It looks like we're in for a very long night, Senator Coons, maybe even several days of this to go on. Is this really going as you expected tonight?
Well, George, we had a record early turnout. 100 million Americans voted early, whether in person or by mail. And as we're hearing from all over the country, we had record turnout in many states. So I'm optimistic. When there's record turnout, often that means Democrats win. And I'm hopeful that Joe still has several paths to 270 and towards being our next president. I think his message all along that he and Kamala Harris can bring our country together, can move us out of this deadly pandemic and the mess that Donald Trump's bungled mishandling of the pandemic has gotten us into, has connected with voters and moved people to the polls. I've been checking in with local elected officials, colleagues in the Senate, labor leaders in several states, and I'm still optimistic about a number of key states that haven't come in yet.
But so, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit more. You say he still has several paths. It looks like Donald Trump, we have not projected yet, but is on track in Florida towards a win. That was a must-win for him. Are we really heading back to the point where Joe Biden has to win all those 3 key blue wall states, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, still holding out hope also in Arizona?
Arizona, I'm optimistic about, given what I'm hearing from a number of elected officials and local organizers there. And I think that means there's several different paths. It doesn't all come down to Pennsylvania. But I'll remind you, George, part of why Joe was a great candidate from the outset is he's someone who was born and raised in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, has always been close to the people of Pennsylvania, and I think has run a terrific race in Pennsylvania, as well as in Michigan and Wisconsin and Arizona. Those are states I'm optimistic about this evening.
Senator Coons, you still think we're going to hear from Vice President Biden tonight?
I'm hopeful, but not certain. You know, I think we need to remember that elections aren't called on election night. They may get projections from the news, but in the end, elections in the United States are decided by states and counties, and it's often days after election night when all the votes are counted. And given that we had 100 million cast early by mail and in person, we need to make sure every vote is counted before we ultimately reach a decision about this election.
And an important reminder, no question about that, Senator Coons. Thanks very much for your time tonight. I want to go back to Cecilia Vega at the White House. What more are you picking up now, Cecilia, about whether or not President Trump will speak?
Actually, we just asked an aide when the president will speak, and we were told that they didn't know. We are sort of relying on what Kellyanne Conway told you at the beginning of the evening, that he will, in fact, address the nation at some point. I got to say, I'd seen some photos from some photographer friends of mine here, colleagues in the White House who were in the room where the president's supporters are gathering in the East Room of the White House, and it looks very much like it is a room where he will speak. There is a podium. There are teleprompters up, so I would not be surprised if we hear from him at some night. And just in terms of a quick mood check, George, you know, they've got, again, these 2 war rooms here on the grounds of the White House where aides and campaign staffers are feverishly monitoring these returns coming in. We've been told that the president has been going between the residence and these rooms and touching base regularly with aides, so they're keeping him up to speed on that front. But the mood check here is they're feeling extremely confident by what they're seeing. Those North Carolina numbers they like very much, and that's giving them some more confidence in states like Arizona and Nevada as we watch those numbers rolling over the course of the evening.
Cecilia Vega, thanks very much. ABC News can now project the Democrats are going to retain the House of Representatives. Not a surprise here. Democrats went into the night with a healthy margin in the House, but we can now say the Democrats will keep that margin. Mary Bruce, that means likely that Nancy Pelosi, who I think had not spoken to President Trump in over a year, will return as Speaker.
That certainly does seem to be the case, George. We know that they have had this incredibly fraught relationship. There is still that fraught relationship continuing. I think specifically about the fight over COVID relief, which continues to be ongoing, even given the state of this pandemic. The two sides have not been able to come together and pass a COVID relief bill in these last recent weeks. It seems that certainly is not going to happen anytime soon. And yet Nancy Pelosi will continue. If Donald Trump continues to be president, Nancy Pelosi will continue to be his foe on Capitol Hill.
Okay, Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Take one more look at the board here. 95 electoral votes for Donald Trump right now, 93 for Joe Biden. That is because we have just added the state of Kansas for President Trump as well. And Terry, as we look at that 95 to 93 at 1044 on the East Coast, 270 winners. As I said, it looks like we're doing a little bit of a replay right now of 2016 with all those big battleground states still out there. America about as divided as ever. Terry Moran?
Yes, I'm sorry, George, I was looking at something else. But it does look that way, and it looks like it comes as a surprise to Democrats who thought they had the wind in their sails. But it turns out, I think one of the reasons the polls have been so battered is that Donald Trump represents a realignment. The pollsters don't understand a post-Donald Trump America, it seems to me. He wasn't a Republican, he was a nationalist. And that is something that this country hasn't seen. Other countries have. We've seen nationalists seize the loyalty of people who are looking for a different economy, a different culture than the Western cultures are trending, and they keep returning populist nationalists to power. Donald Trump is that person. I think it does come as a surprise, certainly to pollsters and to many Democrats as well. There's a lot of things, however this race comes out, for Democrats to do when it comes to the white working class and the working class among many of the minorities as well.
Thank you, Terry. Another state has just gone to Joe Biden, Illinois, and it's 20 electoral votes, solid Democratic state, won by Hillary Clinton in 2016 by 17 points. Rahm Emanuel, your home state.
What's interesting, right there it is. I'm going to drop it the same way he's going to drop about New Jersey. Here's what I would say when you look at the whole map. Every state right now that we're seeing is performed to actually what was expected, except for Arizona. That's the only one that's outperformed, that is different than what happened in 2016.
Well, but that's an important distinction. You say to 2016, not necessarily to the wealth of polls we saw coming into this election.
No, that's what I was going to get to next. I appreciate the lead-in right there.
Congratulations.
We should really take this on the road. I think it's really going. But what's happened is what people. There's basically when the dust gets settled, you'll see Joe Biden is overperforming in certain areas and underperforming from a vote total. But when you look at the polling, what some of the expectations and people have right now, just on election night, is they saw things happening in North Carolina, Georgia, et cetera. Still could happen. But what's happening is really it's going to come down to 4 states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona.
And perhaps Arizona.
And maybe Georgia.
I did some quick back-of-the-envelope math, and it looks to me like Trump would have to get between 65 and 70% of what's outstanding to win Arizona. It's not impossible, but that's a really tall hurdle. And we've seen repeatedly in this campaign where the president is underperforming with seniors. Certainly, COVID hit Arizona very hard, and this could be an example of what we're seeing, where the COVID crisis is actually having a disproportionate impact in Arizona compared to other states.
And if that's the case, then he's got to pick up Michigan or Wisconsin, in addition to holding Ohio and holding Pennsylvania.
Right.
If he loses Arizona.
I mean, John, I'm going to go to you on this because this is where the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District comes into play. If Joe Biden wins Arizona, wins Michigan, and wins Wisconsin, but loses Pennsylvania,
you get to 269, and that's a tie. And the way the tie is broken is it's broken in the House of Representatives, but it's not the majority of the House of Representatives, which the Democrats control. Every state's congressional district gets a single vote. And the Republicans control more congressional districts, more state delegations than
one vote.
By one. They have 26.
If Joe Biden wins that 2nd Congressional District in Nebraska, 270
Right.
to 268.
And by the way, we call it, I mean, it's got a nickname. It's called Obama-ha, you know, because Obama won it when they started splitting the Delaware. So, you know, it is a district that I would say Biden is favored to win.
You do not look at this person and ever think of the word patience, but I'm actually going to advocate it. This is going to be a long week. It's going to take a while. It's going to come down to four to 5 states, and that's what's going to happen.
I was going to say we have a very competitive congressional race going on in 82. Carr Eastman and Don Bacon, and as you know, this is a rematch. Progressives and Democrats came together to support Carr Eastman. So if it comes down to that, I think we might win it.
Okay, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back.
George.
ABC News, straightforward.
Stand down.
I've been quested to bring this one back to its kind. If I can locate other Mandalorians, they can guide me.
This is no place for a child.
Wherever I go, he goes.
The Mandalorian, new season now streaming only on Disney+.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any place else. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir.
We have made it through another week together.
America's most watched program across all of television.
Hello? This is Montana Highway Patrol. You're looking for a couple of missing teenagers. That's right. Last seen in a red Focus.
The steering wheel is getting stiff. Lock the door. We're fine.
Got ourselves a predicament.
When the night has come.
Wednesday night, get ready for
a con so big, so outrageous, never seen anything like it before.
Meet the Prince, pretending to be part of one of the world's richest royal families.
Living large.
But
holy cow, who is this person?
He stole approximately $8.1 million.
Where was all this money coming from? Buckle up.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
I'm Whoopi Goldberg. This is The Con.
All new and royally good. Wednesday on ABC.
Oh, look at this blue sky.
Hey, clear sky, guys. Made it through.
Change is difficult, but this is my home. This is where I want to be.
I love that town. I'm not going to bail on it.
It's a big deal. New beginning.
Rebuilding Paradise. Network premieres Sunday at 9 on National Geographic.
Friday nights, 9/8 Central. True crime, cinematic, real-life drama, stunning, the unthinkable. Follow the clues. The Hunt. True crime. 2020. Friday nights, 9/8 Central on ABC.
Welcome to Disney+. Are you ready? Drop in and explore. The action, the adventure, and the originals. There's no limit to what you'll find. These are your worlds. So come on, dive deeper into the universes you love. Wherever and whenever you want them, you'll find them all here on Disney+.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest news stories of the day, inside all the details, the backstory, and what will happen next, then listen to Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. It's like no other news podcast out there. Even the critics agree. Listen free on Apple Podcasts.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Wake up to real-time answers, real-time results the morning after this historic election with the most powerful team in politics live. First thing in the morning, ABC. Good Morning America.
And And we are back at ABC News Election Headquarters. That's what you see right there, the map. 11 states won by Joe Biden, 113 electoral votes. 16 states won by Donald Trump, 108 electoral votes. Exactly the states 4 years ago the Democrats and Republicans won. There has not been a switch yet in any of the key battlegrounds. We're still looking at a lot of states. We can project now that Donald Trump, as you see up there, has won the state of Wyoming, and it's 3 electoral votes. Solid Republican state, no surprise there again. And we can report in the Senate, Lindsey Graham will hold on to his seat in South Carolina. Faced a fierce, surprising challenge from Jamie Harrison, who raised tens of millions of dollars in the final weeks of this campaign. It wasn't enough to put him over the top. Janae Norman in South Carolina.
Yeah, George, Jamie Harrison spoke not long ago conceding the race to Lindsey Graham, a hard-fought race that Lindsey Graham hadn't originally anticipated. As you just mentioned, Harrison raised record-setting amounts of money, and he pushed this idea about the New South, hoping a surge of black voters and growing diversity in this historically red state could help propel him to victory. But Republicans remained optimistic that conservatives would choose Lindsey Graham. That's one thing the state's GOP chair talked with me about earlier today. He said demographics are not ideology, demographics are not philosophy. He told me it is conservative ideals that have given Republicans a majority here in South Carolina, and that has helped Lindsey Graham in recent weeks, even though he has changed his stance on Supreme Court nominations in an election year. By supporting the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, he has been able to tout those conservative values, and that has helped him a lot. He struggled more this time around with women and independent voters, with women seeming evenly split between Harrison and Graham, and independent voters seeming to lean toward Harrison. But in the end, Graham pulled this one out. He will hold on to his seat, and that will certainly help Republicans as they remain optimistic in maintaining a majority in the Senate.
Janae Norman, thanks very much. John Carr, I want to go to you. One of the reasons Jamie Harrison was able to raise so much money is that Lindsey Graham becomes such a target of progressives and liberals, gone from being the best friend of John McCain to basically Donald Trump's biggest supporter in the Senate.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there was when Obama first got elected, I think he was Rahm Emanuel's best friend. I mean, he was the Republican you like to work with. He was, but he hitched himself. He hitched himself to Donald Trump thoroughly and totally. After calling Trump a racist, he attacked Trump in the most vicious terms during that Republican primary and turned right around. And you know, Jamie Harrison was able to raise presidential level money in a Senate race, but not enough to win in South Carolina.
No. And Mary Bruce, Lindsey Graham was such a key player in the confirmation of both Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court.
He is the chairman of the powerful Judiciary Committee. Lindsey Graham just got a very big win in the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, but it was yet another example of the really just astounding 180 that Lindsey Graham has done in recent years. Of course, he came out in the end of Obama's term saying he would absolutely never consider a Supreme Court nominee this close to a presidential election. He went back on that promise, of course, leading the charge on the Hill to get Amy Coney Barrett confirmed. Lindsey Graham has really gone from being one of the president's opponents, one of his fiercest foes, to being his absolute top ally on the Hill. I can tell you, anyone who covers Capitol Hill knows in Washington, if you want to know what the president is thinking, you go and find Lindsey Graham in the basement of the Capitol. And he is not hard to find because often it works the other way around, too. If he wants the president to know what's happening on the Hill, he often comes and finds us to telegraph through the media. It has been just a remarkable run for Lindsey Graham, and I think it was one of the reasons, of course, why you saw Jamie Harrison raising so much money. Lindsey Graham was pummeled in this race by ads for his flip-flopping on his positions. And when it comes to the president, Jamie Harrison raising that astounding $57 million. That is presidential level money, but ultimately not enough. Lindsey Graham, it appears, will continue to be the president's top ally, closest friend on Capitol Hill.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Chris Christie, now the Senate battle is going to come down to North Carolina, Iowa, and Maine.
Yeah, and the Republicans have to win 2 of the 3 there. And I think they're in good shape to do it. I continue to hear from North Carolina Republican leadership. They're getting more and more confident as the night goes on that Tom Tillis is going to win a narrow race there and that the president will win the electoral votes. And in Iowa, spoke to a couple of Republican leaders there who think that Joni Ernst is going to be in good shape tonight.
We are going to keep an eye on it. We're going to be back in just a minute. Some of our stations are going to go to the late local news right now, but our election coverage continues in just a moment.